Welcome back. Welcome back to the Love and Worship Podcast with Kingsley Kase. Yes, that's me. And you're here, and we're going to be talking about chapter 4 of The Course of Life, my new book that I released in January. And I'm so excited to be a part of this. We're going to dig into a lot of things and cover a few things. The Eagles win at the Super Bowl, halftime show that was very based. We're going to talk more about the love and worship experience and how that journey was. So let's go. Let's dig in. Yes, welcome back once again. I'm Kingsley Kase. I am your host on this podcast, the Love and Worship Podcast. And we're just doing this. A lot of people assume that I'm just doing this because I have too much time on my hands and there's nothing else. I should be probably out there doing something, working a 9-to-5 job like everyone else, or being mind controlled by entities that seek to oppress people like me and people who are gifted like me, or to be singled out, to be attacked just because I'm moving such at a faster pace than everyone else, and everyone's trying to tell me I need to slow down to compensate for the other ones who are far behind. And the last time I checked, innovation does not wait for people who are not waking up in the morning to get it done. Growth does not wait for you until you figured it out. Trees are planted, and trees continue to grow every single day as they're watered, as they're nourished by the sunlight, and they do not wait for some sort of miraculous. I don't know. People always look for these excuses. I think we're in the era right now where we are constantly making excuses for the other person. We're constantly comparing each other. We're constantly trying to put others in a box because we refuse to understand the other person. And for me, chapter 4 of The Course of Life, digging right into that, going straight into this, which talks about walking the journey of faith. And I switch it up a little bit. Instead of me titling that, I title Walking in the Wait. And most people don't understand that in the grand scheme of things. They usually look at it as we're walking in the wait because the wait is a process, and we're going to be formed and we're going to come up glowing like diamonds. But what if you don't? What if you're walking in the wait, but the wait is your journey? What if the wait is God just wanting to spend so much time on you because you've been abused so much by the world? They have wrecked you so much. Your mind has been controlled so many times by legacy media, by all of these other platforms, by leaders who are in positions who have abused their position of power, instead of allowing young persons to flourish and building up and tell them the truth. We've lied to them, or we've sugarcoated these things that we've sold to them. We've sold them this dream that doesn't exist. We've made it seem as if this dream exists, but it doesn't exist. And then when they finally get there, they don't return. I'll draw a straight up an example. One of the biggest examples, before I dig deeper into chapter 4, one of the biggest examples is, one, our young adults ministry. Our young adults ministry is like null and void. We have teenagers that show up to church. We have teenagers that come out to youth nights and stuff like that, and a lot of them want to come out, and a lot of them love to experience that. But the number one reason why a lot of them are not there, and I'll tell you this, 90% of our young adults are in the streets. 90% of our young adults are in the streets. And not that they don't care about church or they don't want to be in church. It's just that not one of them are thinking, if I serve, if I do my part, if I dedicate my time to be there, this is also going to be beneficial to me as well as somebody else and helping someone else. And there are so many opportunities to this day in the church where young adult ministries are needed. But because they are constantly making this excuse that I've been waiting for this role. I want to do this. I want to do this. And no one's letting me do what I want to do. But who are you talking to? Who are you communicating to when you're saying these things? So much things come back to me that I hear. So many complaints come back to me that I hear. But the number one thing that stands out to me the most, that shows me the number one thing that is a major problem is people could assume the worst about you first before assuming a positive thing. I love my young people. I love the young adults. I love the church that I serve. The number one thing I always try to do is assume the positive first. I look at all the good things. It takes me a while for me to get to the negative side of a person, to even think of that. So when you see me saying or making statements about things, I'm usually making those statements after I've observed for a while. I observe, I listen. Number one thing I do is I listen. Second thing, I listen to a lot of things that people don't even notice that's happening. These young persons, they make statements, and half of the times the people who want to be friends with them, who want to just sugarcoat it and have fun with them, they don't understand what these young persons are actually saying. And it's usually because 90% of the time is most people who serve young people on a consistent basis will have more of an experience. People who have younger family members in their lives that they're consistently working with or communicating to, or they have a relationship with, will have that. Or people who grew up with stronger relationships and stronger bonds with young people, and they've had years of experience, they will always know that every young person is unique. Every young person has something to offer. But when it comes to the kingdom message does not change. It doesn't change just because you have something unique to share. It's still the same kingdom message. And whether or not we're trying to sugarcoat these young kids, and we know Jesus is coming back soon. We know Jesus is on his way back. And if we're not ready, we're all going to hell. And that's the truth. And we're still wasting time with these young people trying to sugarcoat stuff and make them feel as if like we're going to live forever. And this Jesus thing is just a dream. This is only a dream. This is not a reality that we have to worry about or be concerned about. Right now, you need to be more concerned about your books or reading and studying so that you can get an education and get out there and get a job. How do they know they're going to live to see that they're going to be able to get a job if their soul ain't right? You're not even teaching them about their souls. And so that is the practice that's not only been going on in the church, but been going on in various schools, been going on in the education community at large. That's why a lot of the kids are dropping out of school right now. They want to go out there and work jobs because when they're on the job and they're earning something, they feel alive. You know why they feel alive? Not because of the money. They feel as if they're actually doing something productive that's going to help them to protect, secure their livelihood. Something that's going to be of worth to them, something that they can physically do, something that they can attach themselves to and say, hey, look, I am accomplishing something that I know is going to be meaningful in this day in life. No one can tell me that a kid who graduated high school with all A's right now is going to have a brighter future over a kid who dropped out of high school, who became an entrepreneur, who started his own business and is working for himself. And now he's expanded to not just having businesses in one location, but he has businesses around the whole globe. Or he has his online services and stuff. He will be more advanced than the kid who graduated with all A's. And I can tell you that all the geniuses that I know are not just high school dropouts, but they're also college dropouts. All of the geniuses that I know. The kids who went to Harvard, when you look at the kids who went to Harvard and Berkeley and Yale and Princeton and all these other places where these kids go, Oxford and stuff like that, you realize that all the kids are just like the kids who didn't even go to college. They're you meet you realize that the same crazy kids you see out in the street that people say their minds is all warped and messed up. You have those same crazy kids at those same Ivy League schools. Same crazy kids. Their parents are some way more insulated than the other kids. There's a difference of insulation. Insulation means that when you look at the money and what's coming into your pockets and stuff like that. But what I'm trying to talk about is walking in the weight. Walking in the weight means that you're going to get faced where, as a leader, and I'm only talking to my leaders now, when you're a leader, you're going to get faced and challenged with the fact that everyone is going to say they know how to lead. No one's going to want to serve, but everybody's going to know how to lead. And everybody's going to have an opinion on how you should lead. And then everybody's going to have an opinion on the way you ought to lead and then the way forward. But everybody wants to be the voice of God in your life. But there is only one God. And that's the first nugget when you're walking in the way. The number one thing, that the lesson that you're learning during that whole process is that there is only one God, only one voice that ultimately needs to ring through. And if you're not satisfied with yourself, if you're not satisfied or content with where your life is personally with you, and you can't even get yourself together with you going out there and trying to help and get together with young people and stuff like that, it's weird. And then sometimes what communities tend to do is whenever something else is becoming more popular and people are becoming more prevalent or whatever the case may be, they shift. Let's say I'll use for example. Now we have new leaders that are transitioning into new positions in our church, and it's also in the church nationally. And out of that, there's gonna come a differentiation in how young people are going to look to other young leaders to now take on the same role that I'm doing. And one of the things I'm finding is that some of them do believe that they can do a better job than me, but they have not even been doing the job. I don't get it. Like, and I'm going to be very, very plain when I say this. I love all my young leaders. I love the young adult leaders and stuff like that. And a lot of these conversations that we don't have is really why there's always a disparity when you're trying to find out and you're trying to communicate to them and ask them straight up plain, hey, you think you can do a better job than me? You want to be youth director? Then why don't you go and tell me this? Why don't you sit down and communicate and show me all the reasons why you should be youth director, and go and try to be youth director for a month or 2 months or a quarter. And let me see you lead. Let me see you step into that role. And then let me see you reach out to me and ask me for guidance on a few things or whatever the case may be. But you just jumping in the chair and making comments and doing all this other stuff. You're making comments, but you're not doing anything. You're not contributing to helping things get better. I'll use one example. One of the examples is this. When it came down to snacks, if it wasn't for a few ministers, we would, outside of myself pouring in just about every single penny that the church gave me into youths, there would be no budget. There would be no youth budget, period, because we just didn't have any money. And so everything was just coming out of my pocket. And at the beginning, I had the young adults there who were also leaders as well, who were willing to chip in. But the problem was that trying to maintain all of that, you got to have a really decent communication and reaching out and communicating with the young persons. These are young persons who love doing stuff with youths, who love doing stuff with children because they want something for their kids to be a part of as well, and as well as having a location for children's church. But here's the thing. It's one thing to make the suggestion. And when I start putting in practice and making plans to and then having meetings where we can come and discuss and build these things so that now we can have these facilities or this space for everybody to be a part of, the young adult leaders are nowhere to be found. They're nowhere to be found. They're all up on whatever personal thing they're on. They probably spend more time on YouTube or watching movies than actually dealing with other young people outside of their own circles. And then you find that they have the most opinions on how best you can do something. But who is there Sunday morning sweeping the church? If it's not the deacon of the church, it's me. Who's there on youth nights making sure everything is prepared before the kids get there, before things are set up, before the kids get there? It's 90% me. 90% it's me. I'm there at least an hour or more, just making sure that when the kids walk in, they meet something happening. And I just never understood, why would you try to go back to being a kid? I there's nothing about my life where I want to go back to being a kid. Like, a lot of people want to do that and they want to wish they're being a kid, but I already know I'm a child of God. I know I'm a child of God. I know I'm saved. These kids are not looking to go back to be kids. They're trying to be adults. They're trying to be and have the freedom that adults do. They're attracted to what adults do. They're attracted to the advancement that adults have. They're attracted to what the world is showing them. So if you're trying to make your life and surround your life and make things for them during that waiting period, and you're walking in that area where you're focusing on, oh man, I need to do this, I need to orchestrate this, just so that they're gonna be happy and they're gonna be excited and they're gonna have a fun, grand time. And then nobody leaves being changed or wanting more Jesus. They don't want more Jesus. The only thing they want more of is coming there just to have fun. And so that means that the place is no longer safe, because your number one goal is, when you meet with them, is outreach and evangelism the entire time. It's not about you. It is not about your personal feelings about how you ought and how we ought to treat every single young person. It's about the name of Jesus and knowing that his love surpasses all understanding. And so when you walk into that room and you're dealing with those young people, your number one goal is focus on the fact that these kids not only need Jesus, but they need protection from the world that's out there seeking to rehabilitate them, to use them, and put them out on the streets. Put them out on the streets, and now they're serving the devil like all these other entities. Chapter 4, I talked about like the journey and stuff like that prior to 2022. I talked about like the first time like I started playing rugby, and rugby, I love rugby. Like I will never forget this. My former boss, I remembered him, but he was one of my coaches. And that's probably why we always had a strong connection. But one of the things I can always say, and this would be to his character, he was one of the reasons why I was able to push through high school. I was able to succeed in a way. I already knew that like I had like there was a lot that I never expressed as growing up, and I was very reserved and not I could be outspoken, but I was very reserved. I didn't kept all my thoughts, and and rugby provided an opportunity. It provided me the chance and opportunity to go out there and become not only successful at something, but to go and achieve a goal that has never been achieved before. And I took a lot of time, and I kid you not when I say this, I took a lot of time doing my best to ensure that I paid attention to all of the fundamentals, even the training. So the training I took very seriously. I made sure that I listened to what the forms of tackles that we're doing, the positions that we're doing, how many times we ran around the field just to get in shape, and what it did in conditioning for our legs, our thighs. Because there's a lot of running in rugby, a lot of running in. I mean, it's a lot of running. So time as you get back home, you're like not only swollen, but you're like in this intense pain. And my mom used to be like, yeah, yeah, you need to stop playing that sport. You coming home and you all bruised up and blah blah blah. But I loved it. I loved it. Like I was not stopping. I loved it. Every single part of rugby I loved. And I was like, I'm not gonna give up on rugby. I'm gonna keep on doing this. And so I pursued it until high school, until my parents was like, you can't do that no more. Even though I wanted to be on their national team, I wasn't allowed to be on the national team. I wouldn't have no one to sign off on it. And so that's why my career with rugby ended, because you know. But it wasn't like I had broken bones or anything like that. It was just the bruises. And my mom was like, "You can't get no back up, blah. You can't do all." But the conditioning of rugby, it taught me that if you wanted to be great, if you wanted to be well prepared, I didn't realize that it was a process of like the conditioning. The conditioning itself was way more important. When you got on the field to actually play, when we finally got on the field to play a game, I didn't feel tired at all. I didn't feel restless at all. It was just exciting. It was just this excitement, adrenaline that was going. Everyone was like having fun, and it was intense focus. We could have beaten the team. It would have been our first, first rugby game ever and something like that. And we could have beaten that team easily, but we already knew what we needed to do, what we needed to accomplish as a team. And we proved that we could have done it. But we settled with not, pursuing that kind of win or whatever the case may be. And we settled the way we did. But everybody knew who the champions were. And most of us who played that sport ended up going on and doing other professional sports. And most of us, our characters develop out of that. Our minds, the development of our minds, the discipline, the heart that we have, the push that we have, the integrity as men, that we got to be together and work with everybody equally. There was no one was treated less than another on that field. Everyone was needed. Everyone is just as important. Everything, every aspect of the game was just as vital. If someone got injured, everyone felt it. So that was the process. And I didn't realize that in that process, it made me tougher. My skin got tougher, not my hands, soft hands, but just got tougher. I got tougher to be able to take hits, got tougher to take punches, tougher to be able to pick up things and do things that I never deemed to do. It was a way for me to explore all the intensity I was feeling inside, and I was able to let that out on the field. Thank God I never had to run and hit anybody, and then ended up at Liberty, and then going through that process and realizing that everything was a weight. Like When I walked on for the football team at Liberty, it wasn't because France was walking on. It was because I wanted to be a part of a sport that reminded me of rugby. But, football is a lot different. American football is different. There's all the pads and all this other stuff. And I'm out there in the rugby field without any pads. So when the fellas saw me getting hit by linemen and stuff, I was like, oh, well, it looked like you could take a little hit or whatever the case may be. I think they was trying to test to see if they could knock me unconscious at a few points, and whether or not they can give me a concussion, but not intentionally give me a concussion. But the weight training, the fundamentals of the weight training was vital. You had to get up early in the morning, like at least 3 times a week, but it was twice a week for the walk-ons. And we went into that training room where the facility was for the football team. And I kid you not, that was the most impressive, even though it was not upgraded as it is now today at Liberty. For what it was, the strength training coach, which was also like our nutrition coach as well, man, he made our lives not only easier, he was better than Coach Archer to me. I felt like if he needed to coach the team, because the achievements that we got through in the gym were not represented on the field. There are achievements that were happening in the gym, like every time. That was like a practice. You go to the gym, that was a practice. Then we go on the field and then we practice. But then it just felt like practice was practice, but it didn't feel unified. There was just this unity there. And I think that's probably why Liberty was losing so much back in the day. And it's probably definitely a different camaraderie inside the locker room now with a lot of teams. And people have learned that over the years. And you have to really develop close. Now, I think what Archer was good at developing relationships. But that didn't always represent when it came to losing on the field and just not having that connection with the teams. And I felt like the honest truth is he just didn't have his team. If he had his team, I'm pretty sure he would have won every single season. But the era that came into play, his era didn't really pass. It's just that he just didn't have his team that was out there. But he was not a bad coach. He was just not a right coach fit for the team that he had all of those years. And a lot of people always try to make it seem as if like, hey, look, anyone can go and lead a team to victory. And I'll keep on telling you that over and over and over again, that the answer is no, because not anyone can be Gideon. Not anyone can be Gideon because God chose Gideon to do that very specified work. The work that he's chosen you to do, only you can do that work. A lot of copycats can come around and try to facilitate those works, but only you can do that work. The abilities that I have, as much as I try to pass it on, and now I'm working with some guys, young guys with engineering at the church and trying to get them used to understand. The number one pressures that they get is when someone says, my mic didn't work right. They're still familiarizing with all this stuff or whatever the case may be. These are young guys, still in junior and high school, and they're just in training. They're still learning the fundamentals of engineering and audio and visual. And that pressure that they get every Sunday when I have to be up on stage and stuff. So every time something happens and whatever, and they freak out and they think it's like their fault or end of the world, I go there and I encourage them and I say, hey, that could happen to anyone. I've seen it happen when I served at BFM. I've seen it happen when I've been at Thomas Road Baptist Church. I've seen it happen when I have been at many other churches. Technical stuff has happened without your control, or just some sort of power surge or something happens, and it's just quicker hands prevail. In those instances, the more experience you have, the quicker you have at being able to have a contingency plan in place and being able to create a solution. Um, and people call me the perfectionist. Yet, how can I be so much of a perfectionist if I worship on a worship team where all the singers are not singers? People who like to sing songs, but not all the singers are singers. So you can't call me a perfectionist. If you're not meant to sing and lead worship, but yet you sing and lead worship, and I'm still a perfectionist, that's impossible. What kind of perfectionist would I be to open it up that much? And then if I am teaching you about worship and how the breakdown of worship goes and stuff like that, and then you every year go back to the same routine over and over and over again, I cannot be a perfectionist. Because if I'm a perfectionist, I would probably not be serving the church right now if I was a perfectionist. I mean, at least not this church. If anything, I would just go ahead and just start a new church. The problem I have right now is that the island that I'm on needs a new church. It's not impersonal, and I'm not trying to say that the leaders we have on all the churches are out of date and whatever the case may be. I don't think that's what it is. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I feel as if like the generation of young adults that are on in our community right now do not want to be tied to a domination, to any domination. I think a lot of them just want to go to a place where uniquely so they don't feel as if they're gonna be forced to indoctrinate. They don't feel as if they're gonna be forced to have to show up and serve in any capacity, but they can just go and be poured into until they're ready to get up there and serve and say, hey, I can help out with this, or can we try doing this or something like that. And it usually would probably just be something where you start a church and it turns into a gathering and it goes from there. And it's going to be young persons who've always been on fire for Jesus, but now they're on fire for Jesus because they have an opportunity where they can be seen in the talents and the giftings that they want to be seen in. But a lot of the kids who go to the church that I'm serving right now, it's just out of tradition. It's not necessarily out of desire, but that desire over time has been developed. And those who've come into salvation and dedicated their lives and they love Jesus, they now just want to be in a place where like-minded people like them, they can fellowship with and be happy with and be happy about celebrating Jesus with. But when it turns in this thing of you sound better than him, you should lead, you should now be the new thing, oh, we want you to be this, and those conversations are being had but not communicated to all the leaders, and all the leaders not sitting down and having those conversations. And then we're not all on the same page. And then everybody's going through something, you know what I mean? Everybody's going through something. Everyone has some very particular things go. But I always try to educate my young people and let them know straight off the top. I said, look, guys, if they were doing so great with all the young people in the church, why the young people decided to leave church when other people left the church? If they were doing so great, and this is really about the gospel of Jesus Christ, why all the young adults are not consistently involved in ministry that used to be a part of the ministry? Why? Because it's the same thing that we're constantly doing. We're constantly putting ourselves up as gods, constantly putting ourselves up in a position, doing this walk. We're in a process where we should be focusing on trying to build young people up. We're constantly putting ourselves as the deity. We're constantly putting ourselves as the face. And it always should be God. And when you uniquely plant the right seeds in the young people, they not only will have stickability, they will keep on showing up. They will call you and say, "Hey, I need you to come and pick me up." They would say, "Hey, look, I need a ride. I need this. Like, come for me, come for me." You know. But the moment you stop advancing them, the moment you stop encouraging them, the moment you stop propelling them, the moment you start buying into the narrative that's in the world. See, a lot of the things that the young people have adopted has been these narratives in the world. One of the things is emotional intelligence, but emotional intelligence was always in the scriptures. If you read Jesus' word, Jesus was always emotionally intelligent. He always knew what was going on. He always knew the intentions that the Pharisees were planning to do and trying to attack him, especially with stoning the woman. He was very clever, but he also knew the law. So if you don't know the word of God, how are you going to combat the issues that these young people face by just talking about their issues? Because you can talk about issues all day, but until you can point them to Jesus Christ, the good news, until you can point them to a life that's better, you're still dealing with the issues. You're so focused on the issues that you can't point to a brighter day. And my thing is, hey, all I need is for my young leaders, my young adult leaders, to show forth activities. And all of them, the number one thing they'll say, "Oh, no one ever asked me to do nothing." I could show you in the group that we have now that I reach out to these guys just about every week and try to see if they're going to get active and have a conversation. One of the things, when I was in class, I almost wanted to laugh when our national director had mentioned how persons don't participate. And I'll be honest, I'm one of them. I'm one of them because I usually always see those messages like either a week late. And it's hard for me to keep up with that because of all the other stuff that's going on just here on the island, as well as me dealing with my youths and then the other stuff I have going on with doing the music thing. So this is a part of walking in the weight. Like you're going to be in those things, whereas you will reach out because you know it's going to be not just helpful to you to know what's happening with them and what you're offering, but you're going to reach out to also try to propel them and encourage them, and you won't get the responses that you want. But then the moment that you talk about a Kendrick Lamar or a Drake, or talk about a rap video or something like that, or you start talking about something silly, then everybody's in a conversation. And then that lasts for let's say that lasts for maybe 5, 10, 20 minutes. And then next week, you don't have that conversation. And then you start sharing like an encouragement note to encourage them. And then you hear someone says, "Oh, I haven't checked the group in over a month." And then you're like, "Oh, well, I've been sending messages to try to encourage you guys and then update you guys on what's happening and also asking you guys to participate and stuff like that." And then they was like, "Oh, nobody asked me." I'm like, "Are you not in the group? And do you check the messages?" And they'd be like, "Oh, well, I haven't checked those in a month." Then they repeat it. Then you'd be like, "Okay, well, let me ask you now. What would you like to do? How would you like to participate in youths?" Here's the thing. They will not respond to you. They will look you right up in the face and be like, "Oh, I have to think about it." So, and then if you go being Mr. Bold or Mrs. Bold and you put their names on the list, then you're going to have some other young adult leader come to you and tell you, "Oh, did you reach out to this so-so? Because I see all their names on the list and people don't like their names being put on the list." And I'm like, people don't like their names being put on the list to serve in church and they're youth leaders? You are a youth leader and you don't like your name to be put on the list unless somebody asks you if you can do it or make it? And I'm like, I don't know how is that applied to them, but it doesn't apply to me. My name gets thrown on a list for church services all the time. My name gets thrown on a list for leading worship. My name gets thrown on a list for being the audio visual, the engineer, being the musician, being youth director. Um, oh, what else? I'm also part of the church building thing, so whenever something needs to get fixed, and then I'm also the IT guy. And what else? What else am I? So, and yeah, you might as well say I'm Sunday morning janitor too. When the after rehearsals and we make a mess, I have to clean up, or Deacon usually would go in there and clean up before I get there or something like that. I or you could say we are. So I'm also sometimes bus driver. You know, so let's just get figure this out. Let's just figure this out. What are we actually saying here? Why we keep on making these excuses? We keep on saying, "Oh, nobody ever asked me. Oh, I'm not available." You're not doing anything on Sunday, but then you're not available. Okay, great. That's okay. I understand that you're not available. Now I've asked. I've reached out repeatedly. Nothing. And then I put the names there of people who I believe God is asking me to propel and put out there, because I have to pray about it and before I put someone's name there. And then someone comes out with a judgment comment. And it's not just one person. And the problem is you realize that you don't have an assistant. You realize that you don't have an assistant or somebody who supports your vision. You have people who are in place that are just looking to be a part of the hype. And when it's no hype and it's uncomfortable for them, they're going to get judgmental. They are going to criticize you. And that comes with the territory of leadership, as well as the fact that it's not about taking constructive criticism, because what people fail to understand too is like everything you're doing is serving. You're serving them. The whole thing is about service. So when you're serving and you're pouring out to people, you're pouring out. You're not being poured into. None of them are pouring into you. None of them are energizing you. None of them are giving you a reason to keep doing this. You're pouring out. And then they come with these other things. That's super discouraging. And so when you're walking in the weight and that journey is deep, sometimes people look at it and they think that, oh God, I can't be here long. I can't take this no more. I need to be done with this or whatever the case may be. And honestly, the truth is sometimes it is your boundaries are being tested of how much you can take, how much you can shift that environment. And for me, I've had to shift those environments repeatedly. I've had people tell me that no one's going to show up and no one's coming, and then 20 kids show up. Just because I prepared the room, I put all the stuff out, and I made sure to just relax and focus on what the Lord would have me to share and say to these young people and stuff like that. And those kids show up. Imagine if I was unprepared. Imagine if I said, oh, we canceled because I decided 5 minutes prior to start time. Imagine all those kids who would be highly disappointed. And that's what happened like 3 times. It happened 3 times. One of the times when we should have had youths, when all the youths wanted to come, I said we still should really have youths and try to figure out a way and make some sacrifices to pick them up and take them home or whatever the case we need to do. And I know it was going to be a bad decision not to have youths. And it sounds crazy, but the truth is, young people, they care about their feelings more when they're in the development stages of their mind. They care about their feelings more, and they care about those emotions and how a person makes them feel in those instances, as well as what the other young leaders are doing. And so if they see young leaders who don't care about who is in the position or who are not listening or who are making other comments, and those other comments that they're making to other young adults are getting back to those same youths who are part of the ministry that I'm a part of, what do you think is going to happen? They're not going to show up. They're not going to show up. So you don't even know what's happening, but this is what's happening. Conversations are being had without you. That's the reality. The reality is these conversations are going to be had without you. As a leader, you cannot be naive to think that these conversations are not being had without you. As a leader, you cannot be a naive to think that everything one of the young leaders tells you that you should take it rationally. And a lot of people say something like, you take it, one of my young leaders said the other night when they were talking to one of the young kids, say, well, take everything as a grain of salt unless it's the word of God. And I was like, well, I think it means with a grain of salt, unless it's the word of God. But I would say it's so true, because you would find in this journey that every time you get close and you're building and you start succeeding, when you're doing something and it's for the Lord and it's for kingdom, watch the interruptions, watch the chaos, watch the rapid tear down, watch the abuse, watch your, what it is for me to go minding my business, and I'm just minding my business, and then I happen to hear one of my youth leaders cussing, or I happen to hear rumors upon rumors about youth leaders participating in things that whatever. And then they know me. They all have my contact, They know they can talk to me or whatever the case may be and reach out and we can have a conversation. But because they were so abused by other leaders, because they're so timid based upon how they were treated by other leaders, because they have been brainwashed and thinking that this is something that they don't need to do. They should just go to the world, go to the bar and sit down to the bar and drink themselves away, or go and wallow in this person who is taking advantage of them. To know that I have girls that have been raped in ministry that, I have to serve and be there for, that's a delicate situation. I try to reach out to artists internationally, and that relationship kind of belly up, and never really got to sit down to talk to her about her trying to have an impact and communicate with the young girls and my ministry through her testimony and what she's been through. And then me knowing that the investment that I would have to pay just to bring in, but it wasn't even about the money. It was just about the fact that I knew that her impact alone would have created a major balance to encourage the young ladies. And I was so focused on trying to make that happen. But I never got that opportunity just because everyone has some bad experience with some guy or some girl, and sometimes we turn those bad experiences that we had with some guy and some girl onto somebody who's reaching out looking for hope, somebody who's also reaching out to be your guidance to hope, someone who's also the key to your success in life. I'll say this, and this is one of the things I've tried to educate young people on. Throughout my whole entire life, I've been propelling young people. When I was in junior high, I was doing it. When I was in high school, I was doing it. When I was in College, I was doing it, not just with bands. I mean, I sat in the background for a reason. If you're the musician in the choir, you're propelling the singers. If you're the keyboardist in the band group that basically you helped formed with your friends, and you're a singer, you could sing, but you're in the background. You even need the lead singer or nothing like that. You're propelling. You're helping write the songs and stuff like that. It's all about propelling. You're helping friends make their dreams come a reality. And so at the end of the day, like that's been my journey. That never stopped. It never stopped. When I came back, I was doing the same thing with youths. And every time I ever had a project where I needed to do something for me, I needed to do something for me that God asked me to do. And this is something I need to clarify so that people understand the difference. When God gives you a mission to do something, which means if it's a music album or an art show or a theater production or something like that, He's asked you to do. If he provided those persons to go with you for that project, that's one thing. But if He's asked you and commissioned you, giving you the talents and the songs to do something, stop trying to make other people to be a part of this thing, this project that's meant to bless them and pour into them. The project that you build, that God has asked you to achieve and build and make successful, is for you to bless others. It's not for you to tag everybody along the journey and put them into position when they weren't even called to be in there. And sometimes what you happen is that now you're bringing people onto your boat, you're bringing people onto this ship, and you notice that they're trying to sink your ship. And it keeps on happening repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly. A lot of people don't learn from that. And during me walking in the weight, I learned that along the way. In 2022, I didn't realize that, it would have sting as hard, and I thought I was done. I literally thought I was done. And next thing I know, I wasn't done. Like how many times we go from one thing to another thing. When Liberty decided that they're gonna dismiss me from school, but a guy, knowing what he did was wrong, told me that I needed to withdraw from the school. And I was like, why do I need to withdraw from the school? And me not having any advisors, he's supposed to be my advisor, tell me I needed to withdraw from school. And I didn't really know how that was set up. And the moment, and this is how I knew that there is a disparity of racism that happened towards me, stereotypical racist. He was just wrong, complain real wrong. And thank God Liberty, they fired him so that they could have avoided a lawsuit. But I didn't know nothing about him being let go or whatever the case may be until after my emails. I exposed my emails and his emails to other people in charge. But here's the thing. It was already too late. I thought I was done. This dude lied to me. He made it seem as if there was no other way for me to be helped. All this happened after 9/11. So, I mean, as far as he's concerned, I'm from the Bahamas or whatever the case may be. I'm not an American. Who cares what happens to me? And an institution that I thought would whatever, and I explained what was going on with my grandfather passing away and my uncle also passing away, and the experiences I was going through. And I had medical records showing that, did the whole study of me, was experiencing insomnia and stuff like that. This guy did not care. He was like, okay, whatever. You need to leave the school. You're dismissed. Wouldn't listen to anything I said. Wouldn't listen to anything I shared. It pained me. And when he said a statement in there, I knew right then it was like such a racially formed statement. Such an attack on my integrity, such an attack on me. He basically called me inferior. He basically said I was inferior, that I could not do college work, that I was not educated, that I was dumb, that I was whatever. That put a stain on my life. Because of him, that was the one stain that went on my life. I've already had stains out of the Bahamas where, a lot of white people who came down and built houses here have been prejudiced. And then there's many others who weren't. There are many, many. But I thought it was a lot because it was based upon the numbers that I knew that were prejudiced. People my dad worked for were prejudiced, But yet, at the same time, it wasn't all of them. But because it was so few of them, and the few that were in a majority, it just was like, oh man, it's only a couple or three of those who are not prejudiced towards my father, that treat him as an equal. But yet, I only saw that, so I assumed that the majority were. When I got in the U.S. and I went to school and I when I fully was committed to God and stuff like that, I realized that that number of people that we think are super prejudiced and whatever the case may be, and we think that is all white people or whatever the case may be, or all these people have this agenda, that's been a lie. That's always been a lie. It's been a lie. People are not innately born prejudiced. The prejudice is something that you learn. Prejudice is something that's based upon your environment. It's not something that you were born to be. It's based on a privilege. And that guy took a privilege out of a page that he felt like he could weaponize against me. And because he sat in a position of power, he used that position of power to weaponize against me. My former boss did the same thing. He didn't have to take me to court. He didn't have to do all that stuff, but he just thought I was still going to pursue suing him. So he said, let me move quicker to take him to court, get him arrested, whatever the case may be, and go from there. He did that. He did that to say that, hey, I'm serious. I'm proving my case. I'm serious. But now you burnt a bridge between you and me. You burnt a relationship between you and me. And whether or not you think that relationship between you and me does not matter, it matters, because I'm still a part of this community. And what happens when I stay a part of this community and eventually continue to be successful without you? What happens when my influences gets to such a higher role in this community where people start saying that, hey, you know what? He should have treated that relationship much more healthier than that. What happens when the new workers who are there now get to that same 4-year, 5-year point that I was at, and realizing that everything that I've communicated prior was true? What happens when they learn that? What happens when they see you guys as men and not gods, and not the nice people that are, it's so pretentious, and people who are still there to serve a special interest, which is really to maintain something for your generation, and ultimately give a little, but mostly maintain. And what happens when that comes to light? And more people starts to learn and get it. And what happens when there's another company that decides that say, or I build a company and say, you know what, I'm going to just build another gas station. I'm going to build another gas station. I'm going to put this gas station for my people to not be deprived. What happens when I decide to build another water plant? What happens then? That's a gas station. That's another water plant. What happens then? What happens when I decide to go ahead and build another marina that's way more protected? What happens then if I get that approval? what's going to happen is that it's just going to be a changing of the guard. And history has shown that you never make it seem as if you can do anything forever, because no one can do anything forever. The Romans couldn't lead Rome forever. They thought they were going to be in power forever. They learned that. So in the waiting is not just a journey to seek vengeance or to say, let me go on and rip this person apart. And I always try to tell people, you got to be careful, because vengeance is the Lord. And when I realized in myself that of my wrongdoings, and also realizing the self of the harm that I can inflict with the information that I knew, not just on my former bosses, but also everyone who was affiliated, affiliated with, that he worked with, and what that would mean for them, I said no to that. Because my thing was like, why would I do that? I'm just not that person. Why would I want that? I'm not that person. What I would say is that I gave it over to God and say, God, you, whatever you decide is up to you. I'm going to move forward in whatever you have for me to do. Because now I'm listening. Now I can hear you. And now I know that I'd rather stay in this place with you where I never leave you. A lot of people want to call me scared and all this other foolishness and stuff like that, and whatever, and say you're in the church because you're scared to go to jail. Well, you definitely wasn't in the court when I told the judge what I told the judge, because I was very sincere, and I just wanted to be done. And most people don't understand what that means, you know. So the waiting process is not a process where you just come into leadership overnight and whatever. We're all born to be leaders. We're chosen for a task to do. But where we've been abused, where we've met with so much tyranny in our journeys, we've walked away from it. A lot of us have walked away, gotten discouraged from it. I will tell you this, all of my young leaders, youth leaders, every single one of them are incredible people. If you had to walk down the aisle with any one of them, it would be hard to choose. Every single one of them are incredible people. You get to know each of them. You get to laugh with them. You get to smile with them. You get to know that all of them are incredible people, loving people. You will never be able to bring out the best of them if you keep on looking at all their faults. And so every time I go through an era where I am faced with so much of their faults, I take a step back and I try to figure out a way to bring us together, unite us together, even if it's for a talent show, even if it's just for a night where we can just watch a movie. Or maybe we just need to go through the era of just watching movies together until all of us could just calmly, collectively be in a place where we can socially commit ourselves to God and focus on Him. But create a safe place that make them feel safe, protected, and they don't have to be bombarded with people who are trying to control their minds and tell them that if you don't go to school, you're not going to have a bright future, which is a lie. Who's taught us that? What school did Jesus go to? You know, a lot of people make fun of me and thinking stuff like that. I saw something that, one of the former leaders that put out in a sermon said, who funded Jesus? And I'm like, well, Jesus funded himself. He's God of the universe. Like, he doesn't need anyone to fund him. Like, the resources that he has is him. Like, so I go to Jesus when I need funding. When I need money and I have a hard need for money, I just say to God, I don't know how it's going to get done, but, you told me not to worry, so I'm not going to worry. But I need these resources in order to get this done. And if the resources doesn't come for that particular thing, then I put that thing not on the back burner. I put it there and I wait until I get the resources to go and accomplish that thing. The other things that are there that I have the resources to accomplish them with, I go ahead and I push those other things while in the process of waiting for me to achieve this other goal. So there's not just, I'm not a person that sits down and has nothing to offer. I'm a person that I have multiple things to offer. One of my skill set is the fact that I can pretty much do anything that I put my hands to. But the training that is required in order to successfully do those things on a consistent basis, it requires not just higher learning, it requires better equipment, it requires more, you know. But listen, y'all, check out The Course of Life, my book, and that's chapter 4, Walking in the Weight. And I just wanted to go over that just a little bit with you guys, and just not too much in depth, but I hit some things home, and I wanted to talk about this subject today because this is something I see in ministry that is crippling in ministry, and we keep on going over this, and the problem I'm having too is that we're dealing with a lot of people who are in leadership roles who are not experts at some of the subjects that they're teaching. And I'm not trying to hit at anyone who's doing this right now, and people who are still learning. My point is that I'm a musical artist. I'm an author. I have 9 books, to my name, actually going on 10 books, but those 2 books have not been released yet. I have albums upon albums that I can release in music. I have toured internationally. I've played here in the Bahamas. I've played at some of the biggest venues in the Bahamas, in front of 20,000 people or more. And no one knows about those instances when I did those things, but that is the truth. I'm not lying about that. I have things where I have shared music. I have done things. I've not released it because I was not interested in it after being burnt out and going through a separation in my life that left me for dead, left me for nothing, and I lost parts of me. I lost my music industry. I lost a chance to serve in America and be able to prepare other Bahamians and even Americans. So a lot of things that went on in my personal life that I do have experience in, I might not share in volumes, but it doesn't mean that I'm not qualified. Just because I don't have some fancy Grammy award or certificates doesn't mean that my name was never submitted. Doesn't mean that I never desired to go to those places. A lot of those things I never even submitted to. So let's just be 1,000% real. And then I never even had the drive to go and say, hey, let me go and push this to 100,000 or 2 million people. And then I never had the backing. And then a lot of that stuff takes at least 10 years. It's always 10 years in the making. It's 5 to 10 years in the making. When you start a campaign, and a music campaign, it's a 5-year campaign. Some people, they take off within the first year. Others, they take off within 2 years. Some people take off, but the best people who actually take off and it becomes like the most predominant and consistent in their careers are the people who ended up taking off in that 5th year. People who end up taking off between the second or the third and 5th years, those are the most successful people in the industry because they had to walk through it where they weren't being successful. They weren't getting the callbacks. They weren't hearing the people calling them. So, that's just something I just wanted to say, just to encourage leaders to be like, hey, look, just remember when you're walking in the weight, sometimes maybe that's where God wants you to be. Not to say in the weight is not a successful journey. The weight is one of the most successful journeys you could be in because that's not only where you practically learn everything. That's when you know who's who's your assistant, who's your friend, who's there for you all the way, regardless of what people are saying because they know you. And most people I find now who make judgments and make statements, they know nothing about you. They know nothing about your qualifications. They know nothing about who you are as what you've achieved. They know nothing about how big it is for you to do what you're doing right now in the midst of a world where everything is digital. People are not buying copies, musics, they're listening to streams. People are not even hardly buying iTunes music as much. They're streaming, so everything is down to streaming. And if you're expecting royalties from streaming, you might be, if it's a Spotify song that you decided to release and you never hit on Spotify before, you might not see anything in that until 12 months later. The reality is, it's a learning lesson. It is a lesson of learning. And all my thoughts is that it's the same way with the Super Bowl. Like, congratulations to the Eagles. The Eagles, you guys deserve it. That was a way to win. Like, you guys deserve that win. More than the Chiefs, because I've been watching you guys for the past year. I've seen the improvements. I looked at the roster. Jalen Hurts, it just was unbelievable commitment of him as a leader, stepping up to that. And he cemented like his legacy for sure with this Super Bowl win. Now all the naysayers, they could just stop making noise now. I'm not an Eagles fan in any means. I'm not. All I'm saying is that they have proven who they are. And there is no cheating out there. There's no kind of weird there's one or two weird referee calls, but nothing that impeded the game. It just showed you that the work ethic of leadership goes for miles. And so I'm proud of this win. I love it for them. I love it for the diversity that they brought to the table. But I just love the fact that we have a win that brought a lot of people together. And a lot of people wanted to see the Eagles win. I would definitely say. I don't think it was a whole bunch of people who wanted to see the Chiefs win. And so I don't know what Brett Favre was thinking. I think Brett Favre was not watching anything, and I think he was kind of clueless for him to even suggest that the Chiefs would have won just because they were the most winningest team. But the Buffalo are not there, and they won. They went through their whole season, and they got beat by the Chiefs. So that didn't make no sense, for him to take that statistical thought. And he's definitely not a betting man. So I would say if he betted, he would have lost all his money. Thank God he didn't bet. But I just want to say this. We've gone through a lot of this period where we're constantly sharing about halftime shows and the era of music and stuff like that. And this Kendrick Lamar, Drake beef thing, it started, whatever. And I thought it was just going to become like one of those diversity battles where they would eventually come together and squash it together as men so that you could create some sort of form of unity to squash the level of politics that's going on. And I would say that Kendrick Lamar just fed into the narrative, like not being invited to the White House, or Obama's Secret Service clearance being intelligence meetings clearances being revoked, and all the other persons, their intelligence updates being revoked. And I felt like if you had to help squash a lot of the disparities that's going on politically and emotionally in a country of America as well as around the world, an opportunity was squandered. Also, that performance was just so base. It was a base performance. I'm not a fan of neither one. A lot of people would talk about all this crazy stuff or whatever. I knew Kendrick as an artist, as one of the greatest rappers that there'll ever be. And Drake also is one of the greatest lyricists that there'll ever be. But at the end of the day, both of them will consistently and always be amazingly great. But they're serving mammon. They're serving this spirit of darkness that has murdered a lot of the young men in my community in the Bahamas, and murdered a lot of the people around the world, equalized hate, equalized violence, equalized profanity, equalized just that level of animosity, and said it's okay. And so, what do you think is going to happen to the church? Because I notice with the young people in the church, they gravitate to these cultures, they gravitate to these circles. And, you know, I never told no one this, but, I did an IQ test one time, and I think I scored, I think it was like 100. I want to say it was like 121 on my IQ test. That's when I was at Liberty University. I scored that. We all had to do like IQ tests or whatever the case may be. One of my friends had known that I had taken it or whatever the case may be. I printed the score because, this was during when they was talking about George Bush's IQ and Obama's IQ when Obama was running. And I remember taking the IQ test and I scored 121. I realized that my IQ was sharper not because of college studies. It had nothing to do with college studies. It didn't have anything to do with high school studies. My IQ is sharper because I was already out in the workforce, out of high school working, and I took a year off from school. During that time, I would, gander over reading some books. I would also just get used to certain things, just knowing certain things, and certain things were more normalized for me. Not just in counting or whatever the case may be. It was just some other things were just much more typical. And I was also fascinated with history and fascinated with organization. And that level of organization for me, maybe having a gift in that area of organization, probably is what propelled that. And I was much sharper now. If you asked me to go and try to get that same score, more than likely my score might be lower, or depends on what I'm sharp on and what I'm paying attention to. Whereas I've been so focused with music and trying to do music and not into all those other areas of my lives, I don't think it would be the same score. The point I'm making, though, is that we always try to say this one is the intellectual, this one is the one, this one is not, this one is not. And it always goes back to what I keep on saying. Every single one of us have a purpose. Like when God said to Adam and Eve, when he said to man, go and replenish, go be fruitful and multiply and replenish all of the earth, we always assume as if he's saying to them, how can you replenish something as if, and that's the first time you've been there? And every time we look at that, every time we go deeper and go deeper into scripture and look at the words that are being said, means people were there. Man, man was there. There's a generation of people, and Adam and Eve is male and female. So a description of male and female and how we were made and the discovery of us. And so our befalling state is coming into a level of wisdom that makes us to know the value of who we are, like God, and our and us seeing ourselves as equal to God, which put a hedge on our humanity, which allows us now being subject to the dust from which we came. So it's a lot of stuff that I just, would like to talk about, but I keep on thinking, like, why would we get to the point in humanity where we promote this kind of thing during a halftime show? And I'm just like, it's dumb. I watched that halftime show not for history, but for more of the docu, because I know I was going to be doing this show today. And I thought about that. I was like, well, you're going to have millions of people who say this is history. But I'm going to tell you, the majority of people in the world do not like this song. What's happening? And people will argue this as long as they want to argue this. You can afford to argue this as long as you. If you want to get 100 billion views on Spotify, you definitely do not need 100 million people to do that. You don't. You only need 1 million people or 2 million people to buy your music, to constantly listen to your music, or maybe even 100,000 people to constantly listen to your music every day, playing in their mixes when they're going to work, when they come home, and that's a part of their everyday routine. And within a month's time, you can reach 1 billion streams for sure. I kid you not. I've seen people listen to music so rapidly, I can guarantee you they listen to those songs at least 1,000 times or more within 2 weeks. I can guarantee that. I can guarantee that they're listening to those things at least close to 200 plays per week. Close to 200 plays per week. So if they're listening to music close to 200 plays per week, within a month's time, 100,000 people have already listened to music close to 1,000 times, right? At least close. So, you're looking at least 800 plays or close to that. Could be more. So I'm not saying anything is inflated. I'm saying that people can literally just listen to a song a whole lot, especially if that becomes their favorite song on a playlist. But to try to make the world believe that that's the majority, the same tactics that the legacy media did with trying to do the whole Trump Russia hoax foolishness, which is such a lie. I mean, it was so absurd. And it was like, it's only because I went to school and I studied policies and I studied government and studied law, as well as psychology and even philosophy, even though I was not a good philosophy student. That course, my philosophy professor, I could not, for some odd reason, I could never understand. He was an amazing guy, amazing professor, but for some odd reason, in that state where I was at, going through what I was dealing with insomnia and struggling with the loss of my grandfather and my uncle, and just being homesick, I think like I couldn't focus. It's like I was malnourished. Like I couldn't focus in class. Like I had all these stuff going on. I was working at the TV station and leaving right from the TV station to go straight into class without sleep. So I was going on like no sleep for like close to 19, 19 hours a day or close to 20 hours a day without sleep. And 4, I barely slept. I would struggle to get there, and those are my days for like, at least close to a year at Liberty. And that course was it was easy in the beginning, and then it just became like drastically hard. Like for some odd reason, I couldn't understand like the terms, and I lost track of the terms. And the number one reason why this was happening was because I was not retaining the information because I was not reading, and I wasn't applying or understanding the fundamentals. And this all goes back to my chapter, walking in the way. And there's a process, and sometimes we're coming through that process, and we're going into that process golden, and then coming out as diamonds, but not the kind of diamonds that we think we are. Some of us come out as all different kinds and all different shapes, but some people believe that just because you're undiscovered, that you're not discovered right now, that your value is any less than somebody who's discovered. Bro, if you're not discovered and you're a diamond in the rough, are you still not a diamond in the rough, even though no one's found you? You're in the rough, but you're still a diamond. So why do people always be like, and that's the whole thing. Like when you found when you've been found and people know that they found a diamond in the rough, they do everything that they can to keep you happy, keep you a part of the ministry, keep you serving the ministry. Let me show you something. If there was another keyboardist in the ministry that I'm serving right now, I probably would be in the back doing sound technician, because I would have been taking a break not only from singing, I would have been in the back dealing with the sound and helping train those guys until they're more proficient in knowing not only what to do, but how to, just take care of those little discrepancies that happen every now and then. And just be on their guard, because they're the generation that's just ahead of things. Generation Z the digital verse is theirs. Anything to do with the digital verse is theirs. Them learning the engineering and understanding all these practical stuff that I'm showing them right now, they're not really truly fascinated over it. But you could tell the ones who have the air for it, you could tell the ones who have this keen spirit, they're drawn to it. And because they're drawn to it, and they might best be drawn to it because they want to hide away, they don't want to be seen as much, but it is now building their confidence. We're having conversations, and now they're asking questions. And next thing you know, they start becoming their own little engineers. They start becoming their own keyboard players. You don't even know when they become the keyboard players or whatever the case may be. But if I'm able to have more help in an area where I need help in, I'm able to do more. And that's where people don't always notice that once you find one diamond in the rough, everybody is going to utilize that diamond to the fullest. If the diamond is just in this in this glass, protection glass, at a museum, just to be viewed. Now, it's not, has it reached its full potential? And maybe that's where you are. Maybe God has you in that glass in a museum where everybody comes to see you and you're protected. No one's able to touch you. But you want to get out and get mishandled. Because, a burglar comes in, you don't know it's a burglar, break the glass, you're stolen, which is, the devil grabs you, takes you out of the ministry, you're stolen, now you're out there. Now you're on some black market and you end up somewhere in this thing. Now you're hidden. You're in someone's safe and they have this, and then Maybe you get cut up and broken into pieces and sold, or now you're broken into pieces. The shape of what you were and what you meant to the people who used to come to that museum, they're all sad. All the people that you reached, all the people that you encouraged, they're all sad. They're all broken. People who bought tickets to come and see you, now they have to cancel those tickets. Now there's this disparity that's out there. But the crime bosses who, broke you to shreds, and because you wanted to get from out of the protected cage. You wanted out of that waiting period. You wanted out of that walk journey. You wanted all the youths to say nice things about you. You want all the parents to have nice things to say about you. You want to be accepted everywhere you go. And I'm like, whoever told you that Jesus was accepted everywhere he went? Whoever told you that the word of God was accepted everywhere Paul went? That John of Patmos was not persecuted? These fellas them tried to kill him and throw him in the boiling pit or whatever that was, that they tried to kill him and do all kind of things to him. They say, boy, ain't nothing happening to this dude. Boy, let's throw this dude on this island and leave him there to die. This with the worst of the worst. Someone on that island is gonna kill him. He will die then. He won't be able to survive then. Think about that. I mean, I don't want you guys to get confused and thinking like there's some sort of prison at the U.S. have. No, I just Patmos was not. That was not a place you want to be. It's just that was one of those islands where you had the vicious of the vicious, the most gruesome. I mean, probably cannibalistic as you could think. And then you probably had peaceful people there, believers of faith who were there, who were sent there to just to get tortured and killed, who they couldn't. But John, there was just like they couldn't have John being around. What's that going to do to all the other people who don't have faith in Jesus? They're going to believe. And you see what the enemy wants to do to your light? God meant for your light to shine. That's why Revelations is so deep. Like Revelations, like we have to. I always try to encourage people to remember that God is in it and He's with it. He is in it and He's with it. Just because you don't feel it, He's in it and He's with it. Just because it's harsh, He's in it, He's with it. I can take my rebuke. I know when I'm receiving a rebuke. I know when a parent is saying a rebuke that includes me in their message. I know when that rebuke is directed towards me from the favor, because of the favor of others. I know what I've dealt with when messages have indirectly so, people not even knowing that they're having these conversations, but yet their conversations are coming out in their sermons. And I realized that for me, when you try to do a podcast, you try to develop something that is positive, that leaves a positive stamp, that it will encourage people to still share. Hey, yes, it's going to be a rebuke. Yes, it may be harsh. But if it's true, share it. It's your point of view, so share it. Let's see it where it goes. Let's see how it flows. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be to a point where we hope for. And the person who it's meant to encourage is going to be the person who's going to get targeted the most. I kid you not. I've learned this, like whenever a sermon is taught and people start sharing about leadership or something like that and whatever, most of the young people look towards me because now I've been given a title in the church, a title I never asked for. but I've been given that title. So they look towards that as if that's who the preachers are talking about. Because as far as they're concerned, they don't have no title. So they need to connect that sermon to somebody physical that they could see, that they could know, so they could be like, oh, or whatever, you know? But here's what happens. What happens then? After the message is done, does anybody rededicate themselves or tries to learn anything from those messages? Or do they just welly up and just be like, oh, I knew it. I knew it. I knew this was happening. I'm like, I don't know. So I try to create these podcasts so that we can go and leave some nuggets that would help people who are still learning about leadership and who still don't understand that, your emotions will come out in the word when you're teaching. But when the Spirit takes over and you're teaching, the word will be so connective that it will touch everybody in the room equally. And because it goes beyond you at that point, it goes beyond what you're feeling as well as beyond what you have written down. Because it would be something that you wouldn't have thought of until that instant when it happens. And it's God really just shaping the message and helping you pour out. Because that's one of the most difficult things. When you have a word and you have something to share, that's one of the most sensitive parts of the journey. Because now you're sharing from a personal experience that you had with God, with people. And if you try to deny that it's not with people, then you're lying, The truth is you're sharing perspectives that you have with yourself, with God, and with people. So, and those lessons that you wish to pour into the body, you wish to pour out something and not drain the body of something, especially when you have lights. And that's with me right now, trying to propel young people and put them in position so that they can get used to understanding that all of us equally should be able to share these roles together. But because they don't see that and they feel as if that you have to be so perfect in order to share and be in these roles, I'm like, they will never ever feel that way. Because if I had to be, a perfectionist and perfect in every single way, outside of the fact that I had to work twice as hard as anybody else when I grew up in the Bahamas, I had to push harder than anybody else just to get into college, push harder than anybody else I knew just to stay in college. And then when I got into industry, my peers that were easily accepted, I had to push harder than them. As a black male, I was targeted from venues that didn't want black males performing in their place because they thought I was going to be rapping and sing. So, but it was the weirdest thing. The stuff that I went through when I lived in America, it is just straight up like, it's the same way like how I was treated by, one of the artists that opened up one of our shows. Her guitarist he was very discriminative towards me. From he first met me, this dude never knew me from a can of paint. And from our initial, the funny thing was that I always had liked him as a person, like brothers, and it became this white and black thing the moment me and him had a conversation when I was trying to book the artist and negotiate. And I realized right then and there, he already had like a preconceived notion about me and how this thing was going to work. And there was nothing I could have done to make that successful. And I felt like I had to live to appease that situation. And still to this day, I feel as if like that discrepancy remains between me and that artist because of just what he started, you know. It wasn't anything I started, you know, wasn't anything I said because honestly, to tell you the truth, the person I was then and how I shared back then was different. But talk to me. Tell me what it is. You know what that did to me psychologically? I had to sit down like with people like Elise Chandler and all my other friends, and I went nearly 2 years having conversations with Dan about that situation every now and then, and wondering whether or not the things that they described me as, I was ill intent in doing these things. Like I was ill intent in seeking harm against a person, or ill intent in seeking the harm and lie and steal, or it crushed me. It left something on me. It left me with a scar that it just scarred my heart. The nice, genuine, open guy I was, loving, caring guy I was, that was just eating all that away. And over time, as even though I still remain open and kind, I realized that that's the reason why when I moved to Nashville and I tried to connect to that side of the community and connect with those guys, and persons that I would have probably helped and worked with before, they just didn't care to have nothing to do with me at that point. And it was weird. It was the weirdest thing, and I just remember my wife at the time. She was like, that crushed her. I think that ended that period is what ended my relationship with my wife. That's when she gave up on the whole music thing, because she saw people that I knew that I was trying to connect to be able to provide for my now wife and our household, because we got to make money and stuff like that and do whatever. And I didn't care whether I was washing dishes or doing certain things, but I couldn't do construction because it would just rip my hands to shreds, and then I wouldn't be able to play keys. And I always, was very concerned about that because I had soft hands. But the things what she witnessed, she was just like, you got to give up music. That caused her to be like, you got to give up music. Just the way that I was treated. And it wasn't by the artists who had opened up for me before that I've worked with. It wasn't her I was talking. I'm just saying that the impact from that relationship, what happened from that one instant that happened at Liberty University, led to the relations of persons. You know how many people that from Liberty that are successful in Nashville, in Franklin, Tennessee, that I knew prior to that relationship, that I would have been on the same stage with, people who I laughed with, that I went and ate with, that I knew personally on a personal level. I had their numbers in my phone. We've spoken and we journeyed together. We were proud of each other. We supported each other and stuff like that. And to the point of once they left, they forgot that one black guy, that one Bahamian black guy. And whenever they remembered him, they only remembered him according to that one situation and that dealing. And because of that dealing, that was like it. And so forgiveness, and she's probably way beyond forgiveness and cool, but the people who remember however that went and the persons who had influence with that situation, um, I would say led to just the way things work, and if they had any follow with my other friends, and if they had follows with my other friends, they felt like I don't want to have nothing to do with anyone that's close to this other person. And that was it, man. That was it. And I just remember my ex-wife was like, I'm done. Like, I'm done. You tried. You tried to reach out, and all these people are trying to do is use you, and that's what it is. And they're supposed to be Christians and believers. She said, "I'm done. You need to give up this music thing. If you don't give up this music thing, we're done." And I was told to give up music. I moved back home to give up music, to try to save that relationship. It didn't work. I don't get any reward for that sacrifice. I got no rewards for it. So people who looking to being a leader and looking for the rewards, who are looking for the accolades and not the pain that comes with it, without the sufferings, you know, let me use an example. What's the use of having friends who are in movies and films? They know you're a writer. They know you can produce. They know you have material. They don't include you in nothing. They don't care to include you in nothing. They have this circle that they'll always use, but yet that same circle was a part of a movement that you are also a part of. And out of that movement, everybody who was a part of that movement is some of the most creative and influential people to this day. And we're all the people that it's going to take for us to make a better world and a better society, to keep things diverse, to keep things healthy, to keep not diverse, but unity, to create unity as in one bond. Because this whole diverse thing is a little trippy. Every time you say diversity, it's a bit trippy, you know. But what I saw when I got to Nashville, when I tried to make the move, when I tried to do whatever, the people who were saying, "Hey, we're going through too. We're struggling too. We're trying to deal too." They were like, "Well, we don't want to struggle with you. You keep your struggles to yourself. We ain't into that. Just go deal with what you're dealing with. We ain't into that." Notice people not call you back, not check for you. And then your wife is asking you, have you heard from your friend? And you're trying not to say nothing bad. You're saying, oh, they're probably busy, because you're making all this excuses for somebody who isn't making excuses for you. So that's when I realized, was like, bro, you better put God first. Because if the people you know that you have journeyed with could do that to you, or you thought you had resolved issues with, that you were beyond something with, but clearly you're not, because we still can't work together. We still can't do things together. And that's why a lot of my friends left the music industry, because of how ugly it is and how brutal it is on families, how brutal it is on people who really want to be believers in the faith and continue to provide for their family and to have healthy children. Because it's really rough. The things that you have to endure and deal with, it's really rough. And sometimes it's soul crushing. And so I say all that to say is that our younger generation, they're going to be the ones that they're going to scrutinize what happened in the Super Bowl. They're not fully developed yet, but they're going to be the ones. The little kids, like my nephew, who are like 5 years old, when they get older, they're going to be like, that made no sense. They're going to look at that and be like, what? The greatest where? Like, why would have he been rapping about pedophilia at a Super Bowl where kids are watching, it's the most ridiculous thing. Like, why would we have that? So I would say I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 5 years from now, all the Super Bowls are just going to have the national anthem of the United States being sung, and that's it at halftime. I mean, not at halftime, but at the beginning. And whatever halftime show they have, it might just be like some sort of games and food or whatever the case may be, or whatever, like a game show during the halftime period. But I doubt it's going to be anywhere near what we think it is. I mean, it's just, I just don't think going forward that is practical for that younger generation to be watching a music performance because they're not into that stuff. 90% of them probably were doing other things. They don't even know the value of that. And the generation and Gen Z might be excited about it right now, but once they get older and they get to a certain page in their life, they're gonna realize that, wow, now that we're fully developed and we're fully working, why were we so excited about this song? They're gonna look back when they have kids and be like, why are we so excited about this song? And then even the guys who are all adults and seniors, when something happens to their kid, they're gonna be like, whoa, why was I excited about that song? That makes no sense. But if it's an anthem for people to call out pedophiles, it's an anthem for pedophiles to have a song about them. So it's definitely not a win-win situation. I mean, not a win-lose situation. It's a win-win situation, and that's not a good thing. So, but hey, guys, I hope no one took this to harm. Just reading, trying to push some positive information there and share some things that are vital, I think, that are for youths to grow and expand. Walking in the weight is the constant. Walking in the weight is the most consistent thing that you will ever do. You'll always have to walk in the weight. That doesn't change. No matter if you got $1 million or $1 billion or $500 million or $500 billion, walking in the weight is something that happens throughout each process of the journey. And it's always that walk. You're consistently walking. And you're slowly seeing rewards along the way. And then other times there are no rewards. And then sometimes you can't see the rewards because you're stationary. Like I said, like you're like the diamond. You're at the museum. You're behind the glass, the protective glass. But you can't see the rewards of the stage that you're on because you want to be on a higher stage. You want to be in the White House where you're going to be in one location for a short period of time, and then you're going to go into some sort of factory and put away for another period of time, which could be anywhere from 20 years until another president say, hey, bring out that diamond. And then that's 4 years. And then you go back. But God placed you in a museum for you to be seen for your particular growth and size and for you to shine in many generations for a long period of time. But you can't see that because you're so focused on getting there right now and wanting things the way you want it right now and not realizing that the lessons you're learning from me, the lessons you're learning from the senior leadership, the lessons that you're learning from things that's happening in the Word of God, which is in Revelations that are coming true, like for real, for real, for real, and the lessons that you're learning just from life alone should teach you not only that God is real, but also that it is a weight. But the walk doesn't stop. You still have to walk. You still have the journey. And it will make you tougher. It will make you tougher. It will make you tougher, but the pain, man, when you get frustrated and you get angry, that pain is be heavy. You get upset, you will get upset. When people target you, You will notice. Your eyesight will be so keen to every single thing that before it happens to you, or anything that the enemy tried to stick and force down your throat. It will be so clear to you, the pathway forward, that nothing will trip you up. Here's the thing I'm saying. I am I am done, and I am one person. I'm not going to pretend. The way when you meet me, you're going to meet all of me. I am 100% all the time. If I don't like something, I'm going to let you know I don't like it. If I tell you that I am not stooping down to nobody's level, I am not doing that. If I tell you my reasons of why I'm not doing that and you can't accept that, that's on you that you can't accept that, because that does not negate my relationship with God, nor you. And if your feelings can't handle me being me and who I am and who God created me to be, then how can you be accepted for all that you are if you can't accept me for all that I am? And that is one of the things that I'm constantly trying to educate young people on, and letting them know that growth is a serious thing and it's a process. But me knowing where they're at, do I have this high expectations for them? Always. But do I have an expectation of whereas there's not room for failure? I have room, because that's grace and mercy. You got to have grace. You got to have mercy, and you got to love. If anything that you have to love people. Because if you don't love people and reach out to them, you're joking, man. Like, not only joking, you playing too many games. And the way I see it, moving forward, you can't mind the people who are not living it. A lot of people go to church on Sunday, but they ain't in their word during the week. A lot of people show up on youth nights, but they don't care nothing about Jesus when they listen to Kendrick Lamar and all this other foolishness and following all this secular foolishness. You know what I'm saying? You're a youth leader and you're supposed to be there for Jesus, but you're so consumed by all the things that are happening in the world that you have the answers for everything that's happening in the world, but you have no answers of how to stay with Jesus, of why to stay with Jesus. You're so attracted to what's happening in the world because you think that's the answer to giving you volumes and resources to what's actually going to help the church and propel the church. And then you start bringing those same attributes and foolishness into the church. But let me tell you something. I really have to educate people on something, because I heard something in class last night and the information was actually completely wrong. Music is music. I'm going to tell you this. Music is music and art is art. All art, regardless of what we want to say, we call it Christian or secular or whatever the case may be, all art is art. All music is music. And we put these labels because we say, well, this points to Christ and this points to Satan. But what if I wrote a song? I didn't say God in it. And I wrote the song without God, without any spiritual contents in it. But I wrote this song to my wife. I wrote this song to my wife to encourage her, to build her up. Well, we say that same song that I written to my wife is not a Christian song? Will we say that's a secular song because it doesn't promote God or anything like that? But then it does. By me encouraging my wife and writing a song to encourage my wife and build up my wife and to love on my wife and cherish the love that we have. That relationship ignites, and that brings us closer to having a closer walk with Jesus than we'll ever have. Me writing a song that's about propelling the world and trying to encourage people to unify and stuff like that. And I don't say God in it. Will we say that's not a Christian song? Will we call that a secular song? And then, and then we start giving these things definitions and talking about all this other stuff. People go to school and they learn a lot of things, that they're influenced by liberal ideas. But they don't even realize that some of those liberal ideas that they're influenced by are also Marxist ideas, Darwinism, and these ideas. The things that should unify us to bring us closer to God, we attack. And we try to separate ourselves from. But the world doesn't do that. When you go to, I'll tell you this, because I know about my club days. When I was going to the club, I know about going to the club and when they used to play Kirk Franklin in the club. The fact that people playing Kirk Franklin, Tasha Cobbs in the club, that should tell you that music is transformative anywhere you go. You want to say Christian or secular? When you're in a club, what is Christian or secular? It's just music at that point. It's what people love and what they connect to. And so when you talk about Jesus and the Word of God and the fact of evangelism and talking about using the arts as a form of evangelism, you're still using the art now as a form of evangelism. You're using music as a form of evangelism and outreach. But it is still music. But music that you will say is pleasing to God. But the music that you use as a form of evangelism doesn't always say God in it, but it points to God because it sheds light on the love that God has given us to share to others. And if we can do that in music and in the arts, then the world that's out there will start looking in. Because everything that's going on in the world in the secular industry, they've learned from the church. The secular industry is at the highest level of music it is right now. I could tell you this, like Usher concert took off after Aaron Spears was playing for him. God rest his soul. Usher did concerts when he was a kid and stuff like that, but until he got the right drummer that highlighted his show and changed the music into such a level that could play music like that live, that changed the dynamic of everything. And that was a gospel drummer, a gospel man. But he would tell you, he had to take the show. In order to pay his bills, he had to take the show. To pay his bills, to provide for his family, he had to take that tour and go on the road and take that show. Because you have pastors out there who are making millions. Pastors out there who are making millions. And musicians there getting not even $250 to play on a Sunday. Not even getting the salary. Now, we know a lot of pastors over time have shifted that, and that has changed over time. Now that they understand that, hey, look, I have to take care of the village. In order for me to maintain, I got to take care of the village. And when you keep on thinking about taking care of the village, in order for you to maintain, you got to take care of the village. If you keep on sucking away all of the juice out of the village just so that you can gain, what's going to happen? Nothing. I kid you not. Nothing. What's going to happen is nothing. I know pastors like my pastor, associate pastor. I know a pastor right now. She sacrifices whatever the church gives us. She probably sacrifices and pours right back into the church to these young people. I could tell you that. I've seen her do it. I've seen her pour out and do whatever. If the ministry is fully developed, whereas we could get to a point where we could get beyond the disparagement and the misinformed and misinformation that people put out there about leadership and what's happening behind the scenes, people would come to a place of where they realize that everything that the church does is systems that came out of the world. For example, we gather in buildings. That's a system that came from out of the world. That's a king thing. We have a procession. We do everything that came out of the world. So, and then we say, well, the only difference is we're doing it for Jesus. Really? You ain't doing it for Jesus. If you're doing it for Jesus, you don't need a building. You don't need this whole proceedings in this procession. Let's just do this reality check, man. Let's just have a reality check on this. That's why I say, like, most people who always come and be teachers, and I know I'm a lot older than them. I know I'm not a lot more mature in understanding studies and stuff like that. And I also know that when it comes to my experience, I'm more experienced with the word and the heritage of that wealth of knowledge. So a lot of people present information according to their point of view and their standpoint. And I know that. A lot of books are written from a point of view. A lot of books and research is done from a point of view. If I wanted to prove that that the human race came from apes, I'm going to research everything that adds to that gives me the answers and responses I want. I'm not going to look at all the answers that don't, or all the reasons that don't. I'm going to search out all the information that supports my ideas. I'm going to look up and read all the writers that agree with formations and all these integrities that I'm looking at, that support what I'm saying. Until you could understand that we always take an informed role first before sharing our personal views. So, and then sometimes the roles are not always informed. It's like sometimes we have these stances and they're not always well informed. And if you realize it right now, we're still brainwashing people. Because ultimately, we should be telling them, look, we are going to have a Bible study and we're going to just do Bible study. And then we're going to do tests with these Bible studies just to see where you're at with remembering certain things and where you're sharpened in areas where you're sharpened. And then we're going to do a study to find out why you're more sharp in these areas and why you're more attracted to these areas. And then we're going to learn about you and build a relationship with you just to figure out why is it that this area appeals to you most? What purpose that God has for you to pursue in? And then we learn more about your purpose, more and more about what God has a vision for you and you to do in that area of where your studies and your strengths are and your giftings. And out of that, that is your ministry. That is the ministry you go into. So people wonder why they're prosperity teachers. That's their ministry. People wonder why there are people who are always seem like they're correcting pastors when they teach. That's their ministry. People wonder why some people are always up there trying to antagonize the government or whatever the case may be. That's their ministry. The thing is, everyone has a purpose. And they have to fulfill whatever that purpose is that works for them. But if it's not according to the gospel and what God wanted for us, I'm going to tell you that they will have to answer to that, not you. You have to answer to what you're asked to do. And so I don't mean to say this because I love the class I'm in. All the lecturers were amazing. They're making major sacrifices, but just that that misconception. See, I've done music and I've worked in the arts professionally. I know what it is to be a stagehand on a professional gig, not once or twice. I know what it is to, some people don't know what it is to work for Taylor Swift. I know what it is to work for her. I know in working with her, I had a beautiful and amazing experience working for her. Are there horror stories where someone would come and say working for her was a horror story or whatever the case may be? There might be, or whatever the case may be. But I can only talk from my standpoint and my experience. I knew when it was working for Michael W. Smith as a stagehand, and I remember that experience. And it was one of the best experiences to this day. I still remember that. I remember that concert because one of my friends, Meredith Andrews, performed at that. And I love the fact to see somebody who I went to college with, someone who I also served with, someone who we've always also prayed in the same room together, someone who I've seen when she released her first EPK with that Keith also helped produce or produced. And just knowing those journeys, the thing is, I was there in the beginning. I was there learning and gleaning. But that's not where my experience started. I was in the Bahamas. When there were big major shows in the Bahamas, gospel shows, I was there, either helping or watching my brother helped, or being at the stage watching the drummers play, or backstage understanding how the technical side works with wiring and stuff like that. So times I got off to school, I basically had an understanding. And then I went on the road with my friends who were touring and helping them set up and tear down. And that helped me with my technical side and learning how to set up, where to put instrumentation, learning the soundboard, what to do with a soundboard, and not being so timid and scared and afraid. And that started to change for me. I started to learn things. I started to open up and grow. But I realized that there were other people that were doing this much longer that had a wider range of knowledge to tell me that just because this one act performed this way and their performance sounded great and amazing doesn't mean when this other act that does a different style of music gets up on stage, plugs into those same everything, same instruments, everything they're using is same as the previous band, they're going to have the same sound. No, actually not. Because you're going to have to re-EQ everything according to that band. And it's crazy that that's how it is, but that's how it is. That's why I always say, like, the same formula doesn't work for everybody. We're always looking for this one success story, and this one success story that means that you're going to be successful. We're always trying to figure out how Elon Musk did it. We're always trying to figure out how President Obama did it so we could be like Michelle Obama or whatever the case may be. But we don't know what's actually going on. You know, a lot of people want to look at Trump and see how Trump became successful and believe that, hey, we all can be just as successful as Donald Trump. But the formula he used may work for some of us, or it might not work for none of us because we're not him. He's him. There's only one him. You know, there are formulas out there that work, but all the formulas that I know that work are in the Bible, because people have been using the Bible for years. Churches have been using the Bible, but every time we talk about secular and this and stuff like that, there's always this major confusion. Like I always try to educate people on that. Like there's no such thing. I use it and say the secular and stuff like that just so because I'm using Christian jargon. But when I'm amongst people who I know are in the world, who know the difference, and I'm actually having a conversation with them, I'm not using that jargon. Reason why I'm not using that jargon is because they know music is music. You know, the devil knows music is music. The devil knows art is art. You know,
It's just based upon the views and our scale of views and what we call as um, obscure and very explicit, or whatever the case may be, or toxic. We realize that what has happened over the years, people has just made it just so raunchy and so ratchet that people have realized that people are truly out there just living for the devil. They're just adding more bodies to the devil's list and don't even know it. And I would say, let's not add any more bodies to the devil's list. Let's all come together and try to make life better for everybody. And there's a way to do that. And the best way to do that I know to do that, is just to humble ourselves and keep on serving. Like, you're gonna get bruised up. You're gonna sometimes leadership is gonna have opinions about you that might not be the opinions that God have about you. But you just got to keep on going, because when you look at the scheme of things, it is about you, because it includes you. And this is one of the things that I always, if you can't take care of yourself, and you have to be able to take care of yourself, you have to be able to get rest, you have to be able to love who you are. If you don't get to that point in your relationship with your walk, your relationship in leading others will be very unhealthy. Doesn't mean that you can't be successful, because sometimes if that's the walk that God wants you to be on when you're in the walk and waiting, that sometimes that journey is, he has you there. Nothing else has you there. It's not you. God has you there for a reason. And if he has you right there for a reason and you're trying to jump out of that protective glass to go elsewhere, now you're not protected. Now you could fall and crack and break. And if you're fragile and if you're just glass and you were behind a protective glass, and you thought you were ready, you thought you were just solid diamond, but you're still a glass. And God have you, he has you protected. He wants people to see your glow. He wants people to be blessed by your glow, but he don't want them to be able to touch you. He don't want them to be able to abuse you or break you. He's trying to protect you. But then you say, hey, no, I don't need to be behind that glass no more. And then this little kid comes out of nowhere, doesn't understand what they're doing. Their brain is not fully developed. And they just fling you somewhere and you just shatter. What's going to happen? Someone's going to come in there with a broom, a dustpan, sweep you up, and throw you in the trash. To them, you've lost your value. You're in pieces. So when you're in pieces, no one wants nothing to do with you. So know that's why God protects us. He protects us because he doesn't want us to be in pieces. I have friends who are going through, I have friends who are trying to push their businesses and do other things and keep on expanding upon their businesses. And I believe in them. I believe in all my friends. I even believe in the people who didn't open up their doors to me. I mean, I'm okay with that. Matter of fact, I'm glad at this day that they didn't, because I wouldn't have the strength to do what I'm doing right now. Honestly, it would have been like I would have had this cushion. And I've been walking for the last 2 years, going on 3 years come August, without a cushion. I have no cushion. So, whatever is going to happen to me is going to happen to me. So it's either I'm living for Jesus or I'm not. Either I want to meet him on the other side of this life or I'm not. Either I want to really be there for young people or I'm not. I just want the fashion. I just want the comparison. I want to compare like Kendrick compares to Drake. I want to compare like the Superman of Man of Steel compares to this new Superman that's coming out this summer. Or I'm comparing all these previous presidents with Trump, President Trump, or I'm comparing all these previous billionaires with Elon Musk. People trying to call him a Nazi and the devil or whatever the case may be, but George Soros is right there, running the world. Running the world with the hidden crew, whoever else he's running the world with. And so to me, it's speculation, but look at the facts. You go and do your studies. This is my opinion, but what I'm saying is that if you're sharing information and you don't have all the facts and you don't know, you've not experienced as much as somebody else has, it's a good time now and a high time to sit in the room with those people who have experienced. You might not like the fact that they don't have the doctorate degree or the master's or whatever the case may be. But for you to say that they're least qualified just because you went to get a piece of paper from a university that has now brainwashed you in getting that paper, brainwashed you to now put you in a role to say that I am qualified because of this paper. You're not qualified because of that paper. You're qualified because God made you. You're his. You're like him. Like, geez, man. Like, I don't understand it to this day. Like, every time somebody wants to go and achieve their own goals and build something by themselves, to build something alone, they have to go in there and do these things that are going to indoctrinate them, that are going to brainwash them, that are going to keep them. And then everyone's like, oh, no, you need this in order to be qualified. No, you don't. The truth is, none of us do. Society said we needed to in order to achieve. Let me show you how. Let me show you how people want to know how sexist society has been, and wrong that they've been towards women. Look how much more women have to go there, get their masters and doctorates and stuff like that, just to barely make what men have been making all of these years. To barely earn equal pay to men. And most of them still don't. Majority of them still don't. But yet they had to go out there and do all these things that these men did. And they still don't get the same pay. So equity is a joke. So you're trying to tell me that, yes, it made sense for them to go and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, go to these Ivy League schools, graduate, and go and work for somebody who didn't even graduate. I know some people who went to Ivy League schools that work for Elon Musk right now, who work for Bill Gates right now. I mean, there are a lot of people who work for college dropouts. There are a lot of people who have made millions because they work for college dropouts. And you're trying to tell me that these guys, they had to go to school in order to achieve those goals. When the honest truth is, people are getting hired now again because of their abilities and their strengths, not because they went to school. But the systems are in place meant to oppress a certain culture of people that didn't have access to schooling, that didn't have access until affirmative action came into play, that didn't have access until certain things came into play. Now you get where I'm coming from? Like, so let's just educate people. Let's educate people. Because we forget that one point in time, everybody was out there trying to get sponges out the ocean in the Bahamas to make some money. They weren't going to no school. It wasn't no school. They went to a lesson. They went to learn to read and write. Learning to read and write. And they prevailed. The maths and people who wanted to study maths, that was a special thing. You went to school for maths. You became a mathematician. That was a specialty. You wanted to study literature, that was a specialty. You wanted to study ideologies, that's a specialty. You wanted to become a doctor. That's why they still to this day, you have special schools for those things. You want to become a lawyer. You can now become a lawyer. What college degree do you need to become a lawyer? None. I think it's just absurd. It's so absurd right now that the Bahamas is in this society where, oh, higher education is the higher education has profited what? People to become more capable of stealing from the Bahamas. Look at what's happened to us all over the years by higher educated people, what they've done to the country. The higher educated people, look at what they've done to the country. Not just the bad, look at the good. Look, you'll see that the good outweighs the bad, but the bad, in our time, we're suffering from the bad. The bad hasn't gone away. And one of the biggest bads there is the deficit. The deficit is increasing. And we haven't learned from anything that our predecessors has done. We haven't learned from what the world leaders around us are doing in these different countries. And we haven't seen that there is literally a way to get out of this debt by creating some sort of new relationship that allows us to get ahead and out of debt and out of mind control. But I don't think having a piece of paper changes that. I think what changes that is if we had a Bahamian billionaire that was worth $100 billion, came to back to Bahamas and said, you know what, I'm going to bail out the Bahamas, and the Bahamas is just going to owe me in my generation. It's going to owe me in my generation and all the Bahamian people. And the Bahamas government is going to be like, no, what do you think you are? You can't do that, bro. We ain't doing this deal, because that deal means we ain't going to be profiting the way we want to profit. We ain't going to be able to do things the way we want to do, because now then there'll really be eyes on us if we even have a deficit at that point. And my point is, the Bahamas shouldn't have never had a deficit in the first place. And the UBP, when they sell up all this land and to whatever, all that was to oppress the people. And then we learn later on that they did that to sustain some sort of grounds just in case the Bahamas lost the country. They still have some sort of control, a controlling interest. People don't even know that. They still in the back end have a controlling interest. Because to them, they're saying, well, that generation of people are not used to leadership. They might not last no more than 100 years. And if we haven't learned of what's been happening around the globe and the Caribbean, with certain Caribbean nations faltering, now we should have come to that understanding. Now we understand why the Cayman is surprisingly succeeding in so many ways, because a lot of the assets that are not being taxed by the U.S. government or misplaced by the U.S. government and other politicians and world leaders around the world are hidden in these little places like the Caymans that are not subject to certain taxations. They're not signed on to certain treaties. But anyways, I've gone too far, y'all. I've touched on a lot. This one is a lot longer because I just felt like a few things need to be addressed. A lot of people want to be heard, but a lot of people don't like when you've listened to them. When you're able to repeat exactly what they're saying. When they come back and they have a point of view and they don't understand the point of view that they're even saying. They're just saying it based upon an emotion. They're assuming that you said something that you didn't say. And half of the times you're like repeating yourself. But, I can't It can't this year. This year, I believe that moving forward, whether I fail this certification as you in youth ministries because I'm not a good test taker with these exams or whatever the case may be, or not as studied according to what the exams required me in order to pass these courses, or the Bahamas Youth Certification, because I feel as if like every perspective is still a perspective. If it could say we've studied this, we've seen what's worked, what's not worked, and this is what we perceive of work, and this is what we these are resources that can help. We have to come out and be honest. These are just resources. The fact is, when we test people on resources, we're not really knowing their strengths. We're only testing them on resources that we believe are strengths to survival. But strengths that we believe are to our survival and the most of society's survival has been alive from the pit of hell. It's not true. So it's not true because I know farmers who've always been farmers. Farmers who never went off to college and studied anything in college or nothing like that. And they're some of the best farmers in the world. And they'll continue to be farmers in their generation. Even the ones that go off to school and come back, they come back with the idea and knowledge to know that, wow, being on a farm is better than going to school. I know that sounds very strange. I know that sounds strange because some people are like, I don't want this for my life. I want to do something different. That's because they were made for something different. That doesn't mean that the farm life is not good enough or is not worthy, is not beautiful. It just means that that person was made, individually made for something different. So yeah, so parents would invest in them going off to school so that they could find a role and identity that they know speaks to them fully and describes of their purpose and who they are. That's why college was there, just to get the kids out of the house and the parents can now be alone again, at least for a couple months, and have relations with each other. But I don't know. I gotta stop cracking jokes because this, some people might go and be like, I make you say in the name of Jesus. But I just want to say that I know this is a bit long into 2 hours. I just want to say that I thank you guys so much for listening so far. Thank you for tuning in. I didn't dig too deeper in the whole Kendrick Lamar thing and whatever the case may be because I just don't want to get too caught up in that, nor promoting it. I honestly could care less about that. I just feel as if like it's the most disgusting thing that's ever happened into the music industry that's depriving other independent artists of their art. It's not attractive at all, and people always be like, "Oh, well, Kendrick is independent artist." I'm like, he's nothing about him says independent when you have all these major identities, entities supporting this jargon that's out there right now. And because so much great and amazing talent came out this past weekend that nobody knows about. And then we have a Christian artist that was there. I'm not talking about the national anthem, but Lauren Dingle, she shared, and I was taken aback, man. I was like, if people only know how incredible and amazing of an artist Lauren Dingle is, of vocally what she can do, vocally as a singer, that her performance, I just was so bothered by that. It bugged me. The only person that stepped up was like Lettucey. Yeah, everyone talk about the national anthem and blah, blah, blah. The national anthem for me didn't hit it. I felt like he wanted to do too jazzy New Orleans thing that it just didn't hit it for me. I felt like this was a one time for him to just go straight classical and straight national anthem and show that part of him that is complete, and then bring out the other jazzy part of him with just who he is as an individual. The fact that he went all New Orleans with it and did a little jazz and little new age thing, added a little bohemian in that as well. I was like, it was beautiful. It was his artistry, and you have to respect that. But at the same time, I just wondered, like, was he pressured to do that just based upon like, what it was expected of him? Or did he go out there with an idea to say, hey, this is what I want to do and this is how I want to do it, and I'm going to stay and true to this without any kind of pressures? Honestly, he was pressured. Lauren Daigle had to been pressured. Be- if I mean, I just felt like she didn't even need the band, bro. I felt like if she just got out there and she just showed her vocal chorus, like the level of singing that she has, the ability that this young lady has in singing, if she just went up there and sang the song America, America, if she just went out there and just sung that song with the stadium, I felt like that would have been the biggest performance of the night. I mean, next to Lettucey. Lettucey was dope. I mean, that was awesome. I mean, that was awesome. But I know why they're using that card, but I loved her performance. She was just being her. But I felt like Lauren Daigle chose to represent that idea and that concept of where she's been, where she's produced her last record, and what she tried to do for New Orleans and the music and stuff like that, and in the industry and stuff. And because she's so caring about people, I felt like all of that influenced her style, influenced what we're seeing now. And I would say I love seeing her being creative as an artist because she's always been that. But at the same time, the person who I really wanted to see was the Christian believer who has a vocal chorus out of this world, who has a voice that not only touches lives, but she's just real. And I didn't really want her to be all glamour up with all this weird stuff and crazy jewelry and makeup that just was not right for the camera and stuff like that, just to appease a following and whatever. I just wanted her to be the one that I know is like, hey, if I'm going surfing, I remember the surf girl that's probably there on the beach just hanging out and talking with the boys. That's like that looks like you and me, like that person that we can go on the beach and hang out with, and she's the coolest person in the room. That's the person I kind of know. And I just wanted to see that person one more time again. I don't know if we'll ever see that person. And I feel as if like that's the problem with the music industry. That's the problem with the church. We've indoctrinated so much. We're not doing anything different than the secular world is doing. We think we're doing something different than the secular world is doing. We're doing the same thing. We're still trying to tell people how Christians ought to be. We're still trying to tell them how we ought to live and all this other stuff. And most of us don't even add up to what we tell people. That's the truth. Because it's a struggle for all of us. And if we're just honest, just a little bit honest, and we're just truthful, people will be able to survive. People who are in the bars would come out of the bars. The bar owners would close their bars on Sunday because now they know they can go to a place where that person that's up there sharing the gospel is sharing the gospel. And when they share their personal life and their personal testimony, they're sharing something that's going to be founded, something that's rich, something that's truthful. They're sharing the reality. We're the ones who made alcohol the devil juice. Alcohol was never made the devil juice in Scripture. Jesus didn't make it the devil juice in Scripture. But we make it the devil juice. You know, Paul discourages people to take go in gatherings and having strong drink and stuff like that when you're in a position of leadership for a reason. This utopia of thought came into place because some men were getting drunk and things were happening. Fornication was something that was definitely appalled back then, even in Moses' time. That's why those guys tricked Moses into trying to figure out a way so that they could divorce their wives and just go and marry other women so they can go and sleep around. And that's the way they did it back then. They got a letter of divorce and they just let go the woman, even if she had a scar on her face, then they didn't want nothing to do with her no more. That's how women was treated. Now we're in the times right now where we wonder why women are so influential in the church and they're so everywhere in the church. Why? Why would you think? How long do you expect for people to be oppressed? How long do you think for that to continue in our society? We were never meant to necessarily be equal, but we were always meant to be unified. We were meant to be as one body. And I just want to leave that there. I don't want to go any deeper because I don't want to get pulled in nobody's office. I don't want the national youth director calling me and saying, hey, you have a problem with the way we're doing things? No, because I love what they're doing. I know what they're doing. I see what they're doing. And honestly, this set of leaders have been probably the most creative right now. I mean, there's ways to keep on expanding. But do they always have the help that they need? No. I mean, people always tend to give their opinions after people are in there doing the work. They're the ones doing the work, They didn't ask me my opinion, so I'm not going to give it, I'm not going to give it towards this. This podcast just happened to be on a subject of chapter 4 that I was going to deal with anyways. So it just so happens that I ended up dealing with all of that in my podcast, just addressing those things. And I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if God just planned this way. I know I did not plan this. I did not script this one. I came in here just to be authentic and truthful to you guys and just raw as possible because I feel as if like right now we're in a time of whereas Jesus could come back at any moment. And we're still playing games. Or Jesus could come back at any moment and we still think we have a chance, an opportunity to give speeches that are popularly accepted, that we should share things that are popularly accepted more often. And I'm not about that life. I'm going to share whatever it is the Lord gives me. And I'm proud of like lay minister Ronette, Miss McCauley, she spoke on Sunday and what she shared was very powerful. I think a lot of the young people needed to hear that message, but I took that message towards me. I took it as a rebuke. I took it as a sharpening and the sharpening iron. I took it as just what happens when you're in leadership and just the fact that it is really straight up. It's really straight up and persons who weren't really paying attention to that sermon, I pray that they really listen to that because she touched on a lot of stuff. And one of the things is when you're in the field and you're working and you're doing the work, you know that a lot of people are always going to have opinions about what you're doing and how you're doing the work. But they're never going to be in there doing the work with you. But they're always going to be Plenty people having opinions about it. And I felt like what she said, it just hit home just so direct. And, I just it just made me to go maybe even more on fire for Jesus. Because a lot of people just liked the fact that it was popular and it was nice and they got to laugh and they got to listen to the story. But I'm like, did you learn anything from what she said? Did you gather anything from what she said? She's talking about walking in the weight. Rachel walked in the weight. Rachel did not just happen to just have Joseph and Benjamin. Rachel walked in the weight. Jacob walked in that weight. He journeyed in that. The things that he was doing at the time was not the most popular thing to do, especially for his point of view. But he walked in the weight. And the point I'm making, I guess, is that most people are not willing to walk in the weight. Most people they're just waiting for the Rachel part of the story. When she had Joseph. That's all they want to hear. Most people don't want to go the path of what it is to be a favorite son. See, that's why I know where this message was going and the importance of where this message is going. But the truth is, I thank God in being a favorite, not to bring disparity to my other siblings, but I thank God in being his favorite because it allowed me to be in a position that I am to this day. To face what I'm facing now. People think prison is only behind bars. Sometimes prison is wherever God has you as your protection and your shield. He has you behind this protective glass until you're really ready to come out. And no one's called you yet. No one remembered you. But somebody's going to come back and remember you. Maybe Reach Records decided that they're going to sign somebody else and they don't think you're qualified. They don't think they have time to be messing around with you. And they just don't like you. Whatever. Maybe Toby Mac has decided that he's too busy or would even want to consider signing anybody that's over 40 or anyone that's over 21. Maybe he's just at this point in his career that he's just trying to focus on his family and his kids. That's him. To God be the glory. All your producer friends are just tired of you messaging them and sending them emails. They don't want to tell you no and say they don't think you're good enough to do it. They don't want to tell you no to your face, so they just stop responding. And honestly, the truth, they just busy. They're married, they have kids, they have now futures that they have to invest in. Your real estate friend loves you as a brother, but he has his family, his wife, he has his life, his friends, a whole company to run, his whole world. And so for him to take a leap and say, maybe I should consider investing this into this project and seeing how best I will roll. He's not going to take that right then because for him, he don't think he's in a position to lose an investment. He doesn't think he's in a position to risk investing to create about another disparity between him and his wife that causes enmity, that causes worry with him and his kids, or cause his relationship with his kids to suffer because he's missing opportunities in their lives while they're still young, before they become teenagers and or young adults. So you have that going on. You have your friends who are best at managing, best at getting things done, and they can't do it because they got young kids. They love you. They're your brothers, but they have responsibilities. They're out there slaving just like you are. You're in this prison and you need help. and you're wondering why you're in this prison and you need help and you're reaching out, and all you can do while you're there is build on that relationship with God and keep on seeking Him and trusting Him and knowing that He's a God and whatever He decides is king over your life. And trust me, that, my friend, is the answer. That's what Joseph did. Most people don't talk about all the many years it took Joseph behind bars. And that's the subject that we got to talk about. We don't talk about that walking in the wait. And I love what she did. It's like a page right out of my book. You know, chapter 4, walking in the wait. And I love it. I love the teaching. It's hard. It was hard for me yesterday to respond to it because I knew if there were rebukes in it, not that I received as rebukes, because it was irons that needed to be sharpened in my life. And that's how I knew I listened well. Because anyone who walk out of there smiling and happy and excited and whooping and hollering, oh, this was good, oh, that was awesome, they definitely wasn't paying attention. Because if you were paying attention to that message yesterday, you would probably have been at a point of where tears would have fallen. You would have been at a point where it's like you would have recommitted yourself, asking for God to increase you against the comments, against the things that are folding around you, against the disparity, and even against the new wounds you've gained in this mission for Him. Do you think Joseph didn't gain wounds while he was in prison? He gained wounds. He gained wounds from his family, wounds that he needed healing from. You know what kind of wound that is? You know what kind of border wound that is? I've got some wounds that I would never disclose publicly. I got some household wounds that I would never disclose publicly because I know that at the end of the day, why would I disclose something like that when I know I love my family? I love my mom. I love my sister. I love my brothers. I love my niece. I love my nephews. My nieces, my nephews. For they all try to attack me without including them. The point I'm making is that walking in the wait, it's not a journey that you're waiting just for the money. You're waiting and there's no results. Your skin is getting tougher. You are building up to something. You are expanding. That God is expanding your territory. You just don't see it. When you're in that, you can't see it. When I was playing rugby, I couldn't see my thighs swelling up and my calves getting big, and I couldn't see that. I didn't notice that until I got off the college, and one of my friends noticed that my thighs were huge, and it was like, well, you got some, buddy. I didn't notice you had thick thighs, and I was like, yeah, man. I used to play rugby, and I realized that after a while of not being in rugby, that man, some of the pants I used to wear I couldn't fit, and my waist size changed after playing rugby. I couldn't wear. I was wearing a 32 waist from I was in high school. I had a 32 waist from I was in high school. So when I went into college, my waist was still a 32. And then when I started playing football for Liberty, I had to wear 33 to 34 pants. Literally. And that was only for a little while until, that was the baggy era for me. Some people, this baggy era definitely just never went away. But that was a baggy era for me, and now I'm back to straight pants. I wear straight pants, man. I don't want all that woke stuff. I just want the straight pants. I just want the parents that I used to, that I know of. I'm not about all that foolishness. People want, if people start bringing this woke ideology foolishness into the ministry, and especially into prophecy, I would be done with prophecy. I'm telling you that. I am not going to accept woke ideology into who I am as an individual. If you want me to be a part of the ministry and to serve in the ministry, that's one thing. If you don't want me to be a part of the ministry because people who are a part of this woke agenda are serving in ministry and they want to implement gay and lesbian foolishness so that they can get money and more, receive more money into church, that's on you. I'm not about that life. I'm not going to sacrifice that. And I'd rather go the way I go until the day I die, at the same stage in my life, loving people equally, but not having to conform to woke ideology. I am not about that life. And so I am just straight up. I'm one of the guys that I've learned that if you keep on baby feeding young teens who are experiencing sex, who are experiencing verbal abuse, who are experiencing R-rated movies, who are experiencing life head on, who are maybe not fully developed, and you're still there baby feeding them. And this generation that's younger than you and me, ready? They pass, when they get to the age of like 5 and older, you could baby feed them until maybe about 7. But you got to be very creative on how you're baby feeding them. When they get 8 and above, you better start having conversations with them about some things. Because you might think, I ain't nothing to worry about, but you're going to be in problems when they turn 11. When they turn 11 and 12, they're already developing an ideology about things and a viewpoint. So now, once they're in their teens, what are you going to do then? When you start actually telling them the truth about things, they're going to look at you as a hypocrite. They're going to look at you as a person that's not honest and not truthful. And they're going to look at you as somebody who just want to be their friend, but they don't want to have nothing to do with you. They're going to come back to you when they're an adult, either blame you for the worst childhood they ever had, blame you for lying to them, blame you for depriving them, blame you for not being truthful, or they might come back and praise you for being super liberal, super woke, and allowing them to experience life in all the ways, but still reward you with the fact that you still ruined their lives. Because ultimately, if you gave them all the options and allowed them to experiment a little bit, but also been truthful, they would have still turned out to be whoever they were meant to be anyways. But with truthful guidance, honest and truthful guidance. And that's the hardest thing, because kids see through you. If you're going to lie to them, but they can see through you. You want to be fake around these kids? Bro, you don't be fake around these kids. These kids know who real from who ain't real. They know who trying to befriend them from who ain't trying to befriend them. They know who to mess with from who not to mess with. They know the one and they know who's not the one. So you trying to be all sugarcoat like this the celebrity in the room and like whatever, like when Alicia Keys had that opportunity at the Grammys and she decided to go and talk about this whole DEI foolishness, which is garbage, by the way. I mean, that I felt like that was crazy. I'm so against that. I love Alicia Keys, but I felt like at some point you need to stop the foolishness. Stop the foolishness. At some point we need to stop trying to sell something just because we have a view on it in a positive light. When majority of times in a lot of these areas, it's actually been a detrimental to unity and equality. We want equality and we want unity, yet we keep on saying, hey, In order for us to have unity, you need to treat this group of people separately than how you're treating this mass group of people. What kind of foolishness is that? It's just that whole Marxism and Darwinism logic, man. And people don't understand what we're doing. We do it in the church too. We do it in the church, and some of the practices that we have in place because we see it as principal practices and the way of worshiping. And like, just go back to the way that Moses those did things. But, you know, and how the church was formed and what was at the helm, what was at the altar. Well, now today we have bishops and pastors sitting up on the altar. And last time I checked, they weren't even allowed to be up on the altar back in the day. They only could go up on the altar in prayer to the Ark of the Covenant. They weren't allowed up there. Where the Ark of the Covenant sit, that was like the holies of holies. And if people was unclean, they couldn't get up there. So you try and tell me in churches, they've forgotten that there's supposed to be a place. There's supposed to be a place in the church that is supposed to be seen as the holies of holies, an area where only certain people go to that are clean, and they had to be clean always to pray in those areas. That where if people needed healing, if they needed healing, they could come into the church or whatever the case may be. And that one place is where the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of the Lord rests. That they could come in and they would be healed from whatever ailments they were dealing with. Well, we don't teach that. We don't talk about that. But we'll talk about everything else. We sit on these pulpits and act like it's all fine. But we don't know that it isn't. And that almost led me back to thinking just on Sunday, I was just like, you know what? I need to probably just go back on the floor with my keyboard. I need to go back on the floor on my keyboard because I just felt like this Sunday when the Holy Spirit moved and everything was in place. And then my young brother, he raised a song. As beautiful as that song was, and as led as he felt to sing that song took us out of the place of the presence of God. And it just brought us right back on to the focal point of our being on ourselves. And so let me know that where he's at right now, he's at a stage in his life, and that's what he's focused on. And he started to sing that one song, and I was like, I don't think he understands what he's asking for. Because he sung that when we're behind the veil, we're there, we're in the presence, where people are reaching out, healing is about to happen, God is about to speak. And I was stopping playing so the Holy Spirit could speak. And because of matrimony, or whatever you want to call it, or because of legalism, we went straight into the word. So I for me, you can be an intellectual. You could be a smart, intelligent person. You could be a person who say, hey, I'm not an intellectual, I'm not smart, I don't know all these things, but I know some things, I know what is right, I know what's wrong, whatever the case may be. Whoever you are, here's my advice. Whenever you get to a place when the Spirit of the Lord is falling down in the room, and the Lord is about to speak, allow him to speak. Allow silence to be, because still yourself. When you put it back on you, now you're shining. The Lord, you're getting the glory, and you're being seen. Now, what do you do with that? Are you giving that back to the Lord? No. You're being seen, and you're getting the glory. For me, it's like, when you now see where each individual's relationship with God is, then you realize the work is not done. There's so much that needs to be done. But the message I got when I was praying after that and after class was that God could still take us home to meet with Him and be with Him forever and ever, right where we are now. And that was the glorious part. That my young brother didn't have to be at the level that I was in order to go into heaven. That my young sister who is still in school, young brothers who are still in school, don't have to be at the level that I'm at in my relationship with God in order to go to heaven. That the singers on the praise and worship team don't have to be at the level I am at musically in order to get into the gates, to get into the presence of the Lord. There's some things they can do to remember to stay there and stop being so intimidated by the presence. And I'm noticing that there's a level of intimidation. There's not this extreme hunger to remain in the presence. See, the thing is, when you get in the presence, boy, all them spots is show. You it's like you're naked before the Lord. You're everything is showing. So whatever spots is showing, you're ashamed of them spots. It's like Adam and Eve when they became aware. And so the typical thing is to sing another song to get out of that. You want to run out of there because you're too close. God, you're too close, man. There's too much light. Too much of this. I'm too exposed. And God in this season is saying, expose it, expose it, expose it, expose it. Have you not noticed from January, United States have been exposing everything? Have you not noticed from December in the Bahamas, things have been starting to be exposed? Have you not noticed that God is saying, expose it to the church? That everything that us church members like me, I have a financial struggle, not like crazy something. There's something that happened because I've been unemployed. I lost my job in 2022, and working with the church has been the only thing I've been doing outside of my music career, pursuing music again and relaunching music again. But at the same time, every time I try to go and do something else, it takes me away from focusing on my music and being able to plant the seeds that I'm planting right now and send out the encouragement that I'm sending out right now. So those other things are detrimental to where God has me. So this is where God has me right now. I'm walking in the way. I'm in the journey. I'm understanding this process, among other things. And doesn't necessarily mean I'm not shining, just means that that's where I'm at. And people are like, hey, you can't dedicate your one thing just to music alone. I'm like, well, right now, I don't have a family. If I was married, I would probably be forced to get out there and work a 9-to-5 and do that. And music, if it didn't become successful in my life, would be placed on a burner that's after my family. It would be God first, my family. Then my family, my adopted family, then music. And that's how it really is right now. It still is like that for me. It's just that predominantly this is what I'm doing to keep going and keep making it. And I'm doing it just because I have time on my hands. I'm doing it because something I'm passionate about and I really love it. I truly love it. I don't love it more than I love God. If I loved it more than I love God, my keyboard would come home with me every time and it would not be left at church. If I loved it before God, I would never leave my instrumentations at church. If I loved it before more than God, I would be trying to do secular music, what Christian community calls secular music, than proclaiming God in all my songs and trying to release a gospel album or an album that points directly to worship and Jesus. And I would not be trying to propel two artists other than myself if it was just me being selfish and trying to promote myself. I can care less about being seen. It only happens that I happen to be on one of the songs that this artist is sharing. So I'm happens to be in the video because I'm the lead artist and he's featuring. He's a featured artist. So that's how it works. But the way I'm doing it where we're in it together and he's going to get promoted more than me. Just because of me just wanting him to be successful. Because at the end of the day, it's about the gospel. It's about the evangelism. It's about sharing our talents and doing these things and fulfilling the purpose in our lives that brings God the most glory. So if you don't fulfill your purpose, you don't bring him glory. So that's how it is. It is a weight. So every message, when you get it, sometimes it may bruise you, but it's asking you to come up higher. And I've never been one to shy away from coming up higher. Yes, I'm going to have my rebukes. Yes, I'm going to have my statements. But when I sit down in my rationale and my logic and I understand the foundations that are being said and the sources of it, and I see God and I pray about it, and I dig deep, I'd be like, not everybody's going to consider the wealth of knowledge that I have. Not everyone's going to care. And most people don't care until, one, you become successful globally. Two, you have a lot of money. Three, you have a title. You've been given some crazy title. And then four, the same people that liked you are going to also dislike you because they might feel as if that might have been a role that was best suited for them. And so that's the disparagement there. And then you have some people who inwardly felt that they would have been called to be certain things, and so they keep on comparing themselves. You know, for me, I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of the nonsense. I'm tired of the comparison. I'm tired of it. I don't have time for it no more. And I'm asking everybody to come up higher, not just leaders. I'm asking youths and individuals to come up higher, to know that we are what the Lord requires of us is more. He wants more of him in us. So that is the trace. That is the one thing that I'm pushing for the young kids to have more of him, so that when he comes back, their hearts will be ready to go home. You know, I had a kid the other day who was talking about his struggles, and his struggles seemed more highlighted than his perseverance and his the fact that he's still here, he's still breathing, he's still able to walk, he's still able to smile, he's still able to laugh. And the fact that he has so much of a positive influence on life because of his testimony. And what he fails to understand is that things I might have told him in confidence that he shared to his parents, he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. And he won't get it until his mind is fully developed and he's going to get it. And when he gets to that stage and understands that whole entire time there's been a crew of people propelling him to a role that he's always been destined for. Not because this is something we design. This is something he's just gifted at. Now, there are people that I know who are gifted musicians, but they're in politics. There are people who I know are gifted writers, but they don't write. Some of them are construction workers. I know people who are gifted guitar players, and one of them owns a real estate company. His gift. He's a producer. He's a manager. But he's using his gift in a greater way. He knew he has a gift, of salesmanship. He has a gift of management. He has a gift of ownership. And he didn't just walk into that overnight. I think he had to walk into that scared and walk in that, learning it along the way and building and building and building along the bruises. If you had to sit down and ask him how many bruises he gets in a year, or how much he has to push, or how he has to be as creative, and what he has to do in order to expand, and what he has to dish out, and how he has to get his name out there. You know what kind of, I mean, honestly, to tell you the truth, if I was still in the brokerage firm, I would have already bought land from him and bought a house from him, because there was a house that he had on the market. It was probably one of the nicest houses I've ever seen, that I really wanted when I worked in a brokerage firm. And that was my plan, to purchase that home. And I had made that plan to do that. And it was in a place that I really would have loved. I thought it was really a beautiful place to be. And I've always liked that part of Virginia. But it never happened, because I ended up staying with a brokerage firm, and wanted to go more into purpose. And am I good at finances? Am I good with that stuff? Yes, I'm good with it. Am I an expert where I have degrees and stuff? Nope. Where I have written qualifications? Nope. Do I have experience? Lots. I have lots of experience. But, am I the best there is around the globe? Nope. But I'm probably one of them. I'm honestly probably one of them. If I was to work for the Treasury, the government Treasury right now, to revamp that system that we have, I can guarantee you that I probably not only save the government money, I probably would revamp that Treasury to such a point that anyone that came in there after me could be successful. And I would do that way less than what all these other guys have been earning from the Treasury. And I can probably almost guarantee that within 10 years of me working for the Treasury, a plan would be in place to not only bail out the Bahamas entirely, but successfully eliminate the Bahamas debt, at least for a period of time, by at least $2 billion a year. And that would take time, I say 10 years because it would take time. At the end of that 10 years, I probably would develop that. But I'm not there. And because I'm not there, I choose not to speculate, because I'm not there. And whenever I'm in it, that's when purpose comes out more. So whenever you have purpose in your life, which means that if you were created that whatever your hands touch, you turn it into gold, or you turn it into diamonds, and that's how the Lord created you, then everything you touch will turn into gold and turn into diamonds. And you will notice that every time you're not in that seat and somebody else goes in the seat that you have developed and created, what happens? What they do with it? They don't know how to act. They just do whatever comes to their mind. And they think just because it comes to their mind, it means that's the Holy Spirit. That ain't the Holy Spirit, bro. It ain't the Holy Spirit. When God demands a certain worship, you can't even go for it. Sunday, we were supposed to sing the song, Hallelujah, for the Lord God Almighty reigns. And I know the song. Get this song. And check this out. Couldn't even get to the song. Couldn't even get through the song. I know a lot of people don't think that through about when God decides what he wants and when he wants it. Let me tell you something. Sunday was crazy because God decided what he wants and when he wanted it. And that was unplanned. It was unplanned. And I I don't know what took hold and what happened. I honestly, to tell you the truth, I honestly don't even remember really what happened. The only thing I remember is when how it started and then what happened at the end. All I just know is like it's not like I went blank. It was like I was there, but I was watching as it happened, and you know, I honestly I honestly felt a command from the Lord saying, "Expose, expose, 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 expose." And then when the message came on, it was expose, 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 expose. And I was like, whoa, we don't really know what's going on, but God is speaking. And if we're not listening, we're not listening. So we got to come up higher. We have to come up higher. And that Sunday morning, it was rough for me as a minister. But I just feel as if like eventually what's going to happen. And I do feel like this needs to happen in our community. I do feel like there just needs to be another church. I love prophecy. I love the ministry, and I don't mind whatever God has for them and stuff like that. But I honestly feel as if God is calling me to start a church, and I can't explain it. I don't know why. I don't like, I don't like anything about starting a church. I don't like anything about doing anything like that. But I just feel as if like that's the ministry moving forward, and that call keeps on coming back to me time and time again, saying that the new church is there, and there's a new church, and there's a new church. And I'm not talking about the body, because the church of God of prophecy is shifting, and there you could see the new church that's in there already, and you see them growing, and you see the members coming in. I'm not talking about that. I'm actually talking about a non-denominational church of that can reach those young adults that are never going to walk a foot into any of these churches unless God compel them to. And He can compel them to walk into most of these churches, but a lot of the young adults are not connected to these churches directly anymore. They're connected to them indirectly. So the information that they receive are not always necessarily appeasing to them or appealing to them in a light that would draw them close to the Lord, or let us know who are serving in the churches know that these are still people who want God. They're not people who don't want nothing to do with God. This community is based upon a faith that, got to give God praise and God glory every morning for waking us up and giving us strength. So if they're built that way, then it would be good that they don't have to feel intimidated that they have to sign on to this one doctrine. And so I just feel as if like there's a higher demand for another church, and a church that's a non-denominational church, not just to start and share, because there is another church out here somewhere. I think they might be non-denominational, but and you hear these church names and stuff like that. They have these names. And then, they have all kinds of stuff going on. You have the 7-Day Church. You have these other churches that are, they have the church because they have people who want to be Muslims and all kind of stuff. And they open up and they have people who want to be transgender and all this other stuff and whatever. And I ain't about that woke stuff. I want to say this plainly so that moving forward, no one gets the wrong idea moving forward. I love God. I really do love God. And I love people. But don't get it mixed up. Just because I love you doesn't mean that I have to accept your lifestyle. You don't have to accept mine. So if you don't have to accept mine, why do I have to be forced to accept your lifestyle when I know you're not living for God? You know, and I'm not one to get up on the pulpit and lie to the body of people when I know I'm not living right. I ain't gonna do it, you know. And if I'm serving and I need to train people to take on other roles and serve in ministry, the only way for them to learn that is through building a new ministry. Building a new ministry where they people really get to see and know that the people serving in that ministry that they know are serving in that ministry, they know these people legit. They legit for God. And their lives are radically changed and they're serving. And no matter how small we start, where it's just me playing keys and singing and then go and share a little devotional word and stuff like that. And, you know, we just sacrifice just to whatever building we have to rent and use until until I decide to build a house, and then we just meet for gatherings at the house or whatever the case may be. And our gatherings be sometimes musical gatherings where we're just singing praises and worshiping and stuff like that. And then other gatherings of just going around and sharing the word and individually trying to see how else we can impact each other's lives. Our ministry would be based upon helping to build our members' homes and working with the community. Our ministry would be based upon going to recitals, going to graduations, making sure families have groceries in their house. Our ministry would be head on. It wouldn't be anything whereas our members are required to show up into a building every Sunday, but we would just share, you know. And if they wanted to pay a tithe to their member churches that they have memberships in, like Highway Church of God or Church of God Prophecy or St. Bartholomew Anglican Church up the road or the other churches or the Seventh Day, if they want to pay a tithe into those churches where they are members at, they have tithes there, let them pay their tithes there. Let them pay their tithes there to help those ministries to maintain, to keep on going. I'm open to that. My thing is I'm not trying to stop them doing it. My thing is I'm just trying to reach the people who need Jesus in a new way, and not in a building, not in a format, not in any particular format, not in tithes and offering, and we're gonna now have this musical dance, but true ministry itself and outreach and I feel as if that would be a deal breaker. I think it would be a deal breaker in our community, and it'll benefit the other churches, because now then those people who would come into a healing place and in a safe place, in a protection space, you know, would now be able to meet Jesus, get to know Jesus, get to be able to receive the ministry. And even the leaders in the community could even go there to get poured into, you know. And I just feel as if like that's what's happening right now. Our biggest thing right now is that what is there for all the other buildings on the island to get poured into? They have to travel into Nassau, spend all this money to go Nassau, be in Nassau for like a week, spend $1,000, $3,000 being in Nassau for a week, come back home, rejuvenated for a month, then you're exhausted for the next 5. Then you got to go Nassau again for another week or 2, catch yourself, and you just spend another $3,500. But you could have come to a ministry right around the corner and received Jesus in comfort, healing, worship, whatever it is that you need, to remind that you need to shine, encouragement, to be loved on. And that's what's needed. And I know that would probably go against everything that we could possibly think of, but all the ministries on this island have need. But this island also has a major need with a non-denominational church that is is not from the what we think it needs to be. It just needs to be down home, like straight up, like people who are more interested in building real relationships with people and talking to them than talking for people. I'm tired of that. You know, if you're gonna, I don't want no one being nobody's mouthpiece for me. I'm done with that. If that person can't come to me and communicate to me, then you shouldn't be communicating nothing to me from that person. No more mouthpieces. That needs to stop in ministry. Let's just stop that. If we have something that we need to sort out and communicate, we need to go and communicate to the other leaders. If you have something to say to the leaders, communicate to those leaders. I'm not going to be your mouthpiece to go and communicate to them for you. That's not how that works. Because all of our leaders of this open door policy, all of them do. So all of them are approachable, every single one. So let's get beyond that. But I would say that's where it's going. But and I would say that my teaching grounds has been now we're Dominion Church, Thomas Road Baptist Church. Has been Liberty. Has been on the road tour with the Case Project. It's been living in Nashville. It's been moving back, going to BFM, serving at BFM under Dr. Miles Monroe and under Dr. Dave Burrows and Pastor Angie Burrows. I think she's doctorate right now, right? I believe so. And on being raised in prophecy, so teaching grounds. But did I heed all of the lessons? Not always. Am I trying to stray away from the principles and the understanding of what it means to be serving in a church? No, I'm not. I do agree that the ministry has a need, and the numbers do need to increase in the ministry because the ministry has a vast need. But I also agree that my community has a greater need more than any doctrine. My community has a need of, whereas souls need the word, and there needs to be an opportunity where all the people who would have used to go to church and be at church could have an opportunity to come and not feel intimidated to walk in a place, whereas under some dynamic, other than knowing that when they walk in a room and they look at that person in front of them, they see that person and they see the person in the light and they see all the spots on that person and they know that person is being real with them when that person's share. And no one's wasting their time. We just make a ministry that helps people like that. And I think that would carry on to all the ministries again and revitalize what all the ministries have been doing again, all the ones that have been doing the same thing. And that will propel the community. And that ministry doesn't need to be there for 100 years. Or if it needs to be there, then who knows? That ministry might end up being the only ministry that's left standing, after a while. That might end up being the one that continues on when all the other ministries begin to fade, and we realize that those structures that are in place needed help too. But I don't think that would be the goal of that ministry. The goal of that ministry would be to be in place to to help sustain the community and help to sustain the churches for a long term, and not just for traditional purposes, but just to help encourage them. And I think that would shift the dynamic in our community. And a non-denominational church like that wouldn't probably have to be around no more than maybe 10 years, just so that it can show its true impact. And then once all of the members have matured and ready to move on into their respective levels and serving in ministry, now you have leaders who would go into those ministries, into Highway Church God, into prophecy, into Saint Bartholomew. But it's going to take another church. And sometimes the other church is there. It's just that their reach is to a certain group of people. And but I don't know. God is doing a lot. So we just have to wait and see and watch God keep on expanding his territory in our lives and in the community. I love what is happening in Church of God Prophecy right now. But I also know that in order for us to keep on moving forward, we have to do this together. And walking in the weight is not just about becoming a thicker skin, but also in that protection and in that covering, because you have a covering in that. And you have to know that just because you're in the weight and you're behind that protective glass doesn't mean that you're not glowing for all to see. Not means that you're not shining for all to see. You still have to shine. And I dare you to shine ever so brightly. Thank you for listening to the Love and Worship podcast. This was me covering the cost of life, chapter 4, walking in the weight. And I talked about a few other subjects today. I'm releasing a music video with Jason McCauley. Hopefully this weekend we get to release something that's pretty cool. Our Love and Worship music video is coming out. We released Love and Worship on November 15 last year, and I wanted to do a music video for it, just to propel him as an artist. I'm looking for him to get picked up this year by some label. I just believe he's that, not just that talented, but I just believe he has what the generation needs and is connecting to, especially Generation Z and all the other generations after that. I just believe that he is definitely a key to success in this generation. And I know that my placement in that, and my help in that will probably also help propel that as well. But I'm just hoping that he gets picked up, he gets signed before the end of this year, that God would open up that door for him to meet an agency that understands his gifts and his talents. And I pray that also encourages the local community to know that I wasn't doing this just because God asked me to do a project. God also asked me to propel some people into their various giftings. And a lot of assignments have been given. It's just a lot of people are just not stepping up. So yeah, a lot of persons have been given assignments and have not necessarily been stepping up, but he's definitely been one of those ones that I would say has succeeded. So he has a bright future ahead of him, and all he has to do is just go walk in it. He just has to walk in it and walk in it, not just by faith. He just has to believe and just keep on going and not give up. But I believe that who knows? It might be probably before May, God is going to do something miraculous in both of our lives. I mean, and honestly, I would say they should definitely sign me. But then, at my stage, what they're going to be required to pay me for my level of talent and my services, most labels are not open to making that level of negotiations unless that artist has already done something globally of significance where they could recognize them as someone they would value investing into. So they would be more open into to investing to a younger person. But God, who knows? They're probably willing to do both. Who knows? But my hope is that God would just provide me with the resources where I won't have to reach out to them, and I could just keep on going and do everything here locally. Right now, I know that there are systems in place to keep me blocked, to keep me from succeeding. I've already proven it. I've reached out to the people who said they would support, and they haven't supported. I've reached out to people who have the resources, and they haven't it because they don't care. They don't value it. So it is what it is. They won't value it until their sons and daughters start blasting my music on the radio, wearing my T-shirts, and doing stuff, and then they'll have a different thought about investing. And by then, it'll probably definitely not necessarily be too late, but it won't be at no level of investment of partnership at that point. They would have to just buy like everybody else. And that's how we just have to keep on propelling. But listen, y'all, thank you for listening. I know that last part sounded kind of like, oh, well, he's not humble at all. What kind of humble person is that? Let me tell you something. Being humble does not mean not knowing your value. And I am going to be 43 in May. I'm proud of my age. I know who I am. And I know my skill set, and I know what I'm able to do. So no one can come and step to me and approach me as if I'm not worth it. I'm worth more than $250 million as an artist, as a record deal. I know that because I can do more than just produce better music than what's been produced so far that I've heard on the radio. I know I can produce it. I know I not only can do it in the studios, I know I can not only drop records upon records for years and years and years and years and years because God has given me that ability, but I know that there's an audience that loves the music that I do. And I know with the amount of promotion and the amount of resources that I can get my music to where it needs to be. And predominantly, I can guarantee you that there wouldn't be any reward or award that I wouldn't win or gain. But that would all be for material gains. So if I was just doing it for the material gains, that's would be what I'm after. But honestly, I'm doing it to share the love of Jesus and to expand his love and to evangelize and to grow. But to evangelize at the highest stage, I do need to be successful. I do need to become something that the world sees as very valuable so that they can hear the word of God and the gospel of Jesus Christ. So come on, educate yourselves. Go beyond what you think you know and understand the word of God. If you believe it, you will be it. If you receive it, you can gain and produce it and multiply it. Okay? So believe, receive, move on, and keep on growing. That's my encouragement to you guys. I hope this was a good lesson this time around. We might take a break after February 14, I'm not sure, but hoping to share the Love and Worship video. It's going to drop. Released the new single, Working, on January 31st, and talked about that in the last podcast, and that was awesome. Getting good reviews from that right now. Good hits. I think it's probably like, over 400 views on iTunes or something like that, or in less than 2 weeks, it's maybe like 500 streams on iTunes right now. I think it's close to 1,000 or over 1,000 streams on Spotify right now. So, I mean, it's definitely getting some traction. So, gaining some more listeners. So there's things happening. The music is popping. There's things happening. we just got to be around. We just got to stick around. We got to keep on flowing and keep on progressing and encouraging each other. But I tell you what, this season of tours, I know Reach Records tours is going to be dope this year. Toby Mac's tours are probably going to be crazy dope this year. Lauren Daigle is probably also going to be pretty dope this year if she does do a tour. I will say that my tour, if I get picked up this year and get signed to a label, if anything happens with that, according to what those prayers I sent up, if a label does decide to sign me or whatever the case may be, and they allow me to go on tour to be an opening act, that tour will probably be the most insane tour ever, because I will do it with friends. Friends who probably won't even expect for me to reach out to them, but I'll do it with friends, like my real friends and people who I know are the best at what they do. And I know for sure it'd be like the Beatles all over again and Michael Jackson on the road, because that's just the level of talent that I would have on stage with me. And so I wouldn't have to worry about someone trying to backstab me or anything like that, or someone trying to sink my ship, because these were people who always believed in me and who always pushed me and kept on pushing me. So thank you guys for listening to this podcast, for the Love and Worship podcast. Once again, I'm Kingsley Kase. I hope you enjoy it. And if you enjoyed it and this one really spoke to you, make a comment. I kind of kept this one pretty authentic, so I didn't do any kind of cleanups of edits, like far as like cutting out, misspoken words or me rephrasing a line or something like that. I just kept it really raw on this one, just because I just wanted you to see that I do some work, I do some work, but I usually keep most of the stuff in. But I don't want to be politically correct or all that foolishness and woke. I just want you guys to know that you have to seek Jesus for yourself. Have to seek Jesus for yourself, be in a relationship with Jesus. And your relationship with Jesus can get you into heaven. Not having a relationship with Jesus means you won't get into heaven. And that is the truth. So you do have to have a relationship with Jesus and choose to live for Jesus and live a lifestyle that's pleasing to Jesus, and do your best at that, But there's grace, there's forgiveness, and there is an atonement for all of our sins. And we love you. We pray for you, and we ask God to keep you. That's when I say we, I mean me, my family, which is my parents, my dad, my brothers, my sister, my nieces, my nephew. We love you all. You guys have a great one. Pray for me, because the church people are trying to marry me off before the end of the year. And that's a good thing. I mean, I wouldn't mind that. Haven't found the one yet, not sure if she's out there. Not sure if I've been speaking to her, but still single and walking through this as single. But I do believe in order for me to be at that extra higher level of focus that I need to get to this other stage, that I do need to settle down and get married. I mean, I am settled, but I do need to get married. But I've been trying to wait for my finances to get in order, but I just feel as if like the way things are working, I'm not sure. So I've just been praying about it and asking God, whichever one he wants to happen first, I'm all in. So I'm not afraid. I'm not scared. I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about the comments of what people have to say. I'm in for love. So if you're single, beautiful woman out there, and you're ready to mingle, and we're ready to worship God together and praise God together and talk about the future together, I'm all in. I'm all in. I'm 100% in. But it does have to line up, and I'm not gonna do the whole unequally yoked thing. I just ain't doing that. But I just want to say that may the grace of God keep you all, and may the peace of his strength and his love and his mercies and his gentleness and kindness always be with you and upon your lips. In Jesus' name, amen. You guys be blessed, y'all. Next time on a Love and Worship podcast next week. Peace.
For my good, for my good, for my good, for my future, for my future, for my future. He's making my path, he's making my path clear. He's working, working, he's working, working.
Everybody starts their freedom for you.